Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal. See playlist for other chapters and novels. Join now our Telegram channel now and enjoy exclusive early access. t.me/blood_immortal_official. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 11:21. The Busy Lin Fan. Space Master God, why are we not chasing anymore? The Darkness Master God floated gently in the void while asking. All the other Master Gods looked toward the Space Master God as well. The eyes of the Space Master God were fixed up in the void, with a water crystal embedded in his forehead. He then spoke up, "The boundless future Buddha Lord is trying to make use of us to kill that indigenous being. There's no need for us to be used by him. If he wants to kill that indigenous being that badly, let him go for it then. As for that indigenous being, I'm sure that he must be deeply filled with hatred toward the boundless future Buddha Lord as well, and will definitely not rest till his death when it comes to fighting him. All we have to do is to wait for them to battle it out and collect the rewards after they're done with one another." "How is the Wisdom Master God doing?" the Space Master God asked. "His condition has stabilized. To think that that indigenous being would have methods of that level that even we Master Gods cannot defend against." The Life Master God replied. "The strength of that indigenous being is exceptional. We'll just let the boundless future Buddha Lord settle his own headache. The Flame Master God has sent news that the Frost Master God is going to descend upon the Endless Mainland to seek vengeance for her sister." The Space Master God continued. When the many Master Gods present heard of the Frost Master God, their brows knitted together as they let out an alarmed look. While their strength was formidable, they could not help but admit that despite being a woman, the Frost Master God was the strongest existence out of them all. Not only that, she was twisted in the heart and her methods were ruthless. Usually, there were no Master Gods who would enjoy coming into contact with her. Now that they were invading the Endless Mainland, they were faced with a myriad of powerful beings. While it was evident that the Moon Shadow Mainland had the advantage, the losses on both sides were still tremendous. But things would be different now that the Frost Master God was going to enter the fray. The current state of things would definitely take a stark change. Let us return. As for everything right now, we'll let the boundless future Buddha Lord settle it himself." Yes. With that, the 11 Master Gods left the place. Halfway through, they had decided on giving up entirely. For them, this boundless future Buddha Lord was clearly untrustworthy, and could just go settle the indigenous being himself then. Damn it, those fellas. The chance is clearly laid down right in front of them and yet they're choosing not to come. The boundless future Buddha Lord was totally enraged right now. This was really way too FCKED up a situation. He had finally deployed his unparalleled immortal art with much difficulty to chase up to this lad, and yet, those 11 Master Gods had chosen to leave at this moment. What was he to do about this now? Lin Fan roared out with laughter at this moment, "Boundless future Buddha Lord, come, come. Yours truly is going to fight you one-on-one today. Don't run if you've got the guts." Looking at Lin Fan, the boundless future Buddha Lord was starting to cuss out at his mother in his heart. This was really one hell of a Mother Sea King FCK fest. To think that a completely free opportunity would have been lost just like that. He had come to a realization that the potential of this lad before him was way too high. Each time they met, this lad's strength would be at yet another level higher. It was as though he was sitting on a rocket. That speed of growth was simply way too alarming. If he were to just let this lad be, the outcome would be absolutely horrifying. The Master Gods of the Moon Shadow Mainland were simply way too stupid. Instead of killing the most dangerous existence right now, they were choosing to go and kill those existences that posed no threat at all. Lin Fan sniggered out as the soap appeared in his hand. He was not going to use it now. But, as long as he were to catch a chance, there was no way the boundless future Buddha Lord was going to be able to escape. Catching sight of the soap in Lin Fan's hand, the boundless future Buddha Lord jerked backward furiously as he glared at Lin Fan with caution. Right now, the thing he was the wariest about was that soap in the lad's hand. The previous time, he survived just because he had managed to escape fast enough. Otherwise, he would definitely end up in the same state as the Radiant Master God. Therefore, No matter what this lad was planning to do with this soap in his hand at this moment, the boundless future Buddha Lord truly did not dare to bet on that. Lin Fan took a bar of soap out from his storage and flung it out toward the boundless future Buddha Lord. Here comes the soap. Bam! Seeing that, the boundless future Buddha Lord bolted right into the void. But, after realizing that he had been toyed with, an infuriated voice boomed out in the void, "Lad, you had better wait up. I'm definitely going to have you killed." Lin Fan did not chase after him, he knew that he wouldn't be able to catch up. Even if he did manage to catch up with that fella, the latter was not going to come at his head on forcefully. Right now, his aim was to go kill a few more of those master gods and have his experience points raised. By then, he would have the confidence of being able to kill this boundless future Buddha Lord for sure. This vendetta was something that Lin Fan would keep in mind for now first. Once yours truly was to get his strength up, the first one he would chop to death would definitely be that boundless future Buddha Lord. Heaven and Earth Sect. Lin Fan had finally returned. Upon returning, he discovered that there were quite a number of disciples from other sects in the Heaven and Earth Sect. These disciples either had their sects destroyed, or had turned over to seek help from them. In the depths of the sect, how did it go? What did those few ancient immortal kings say? Zheng Yangtian asked. Lin Fan shook his head. Let's not talk about the truth immortal king, as he's no more. The southern demon immortal king agreed to it right away, but from what I could tell, I doubt he's going to join us. As for the last two remaining immortal kings, I did not even manage to catch sight of them. I'm guessing that they must have been swayed by the words of the boundless future Buddha Lord, and would definitely not come forth to help. Old Master, looking at your expression right now, I'm guessing that you must have expected this, right? Zheng Yangtian nodded his head. Indeed, it's as I had guessed. Those four ancient immortal kings have their entire hearts set on attaining the great Tao of the Heavenly Lord, and would naturally not be concerned over affairs as such. For them, the affairs of the entire universe have nothing to do with them at all. Lin Fan chuckled out, you had me go over despite knowing that. Wasn't that just to have me make a wasted trip? On my way back, I was blocked by the boundless future Buddha Lord in my path. Thankfully, I was rather lucky and managed to give him the slip. Zheng Yangtian looked at Lin Fan. Your strength is already that of an immortal king, right? You don't have to hide it. I've had a hunch about it for a long time now. Lin Fan shrugged his shoulders. To think that you would have been able to tell. Initially, I had wanted to give you guys a surprise and tell you that I'm already at the immortal king state. Since that truth immortal king did not know what was good for him, I did him in. There are 72 master gods of the Moon Shadow mainland, and I have killed 2 of them as well. However, that boundless future Buddha Lord is bound to be hot on my heels from now onwards. I might have to be really careful if I were to head out in the future. Zheng Yangtian and some of the other old masters let out alarmed looks. Even though Lin Fan had said everything really casually, it was something unusually horrifying in their ears. Han Juntian's face was just blank right now. From what you're saying, your current cultivation state is even higher than mine now, right? Lin Fan looked over at Han Juntian. Grand Master, don't go harping on such things now. At times, it's better to not compare between ourselves and others. The most important thing in life is to be happy. Hugh, Han Juntian could only laugh out bitterly. Bloody hell, how was he supposed to be happy about this? Even his disciple was stronger than him right now. If word of this were to get out, how embarrassing would that be? Even though it is said that the student should always surpass the master, but wasn't this rate of growth way too fast? Just as Lin Fan and Han Juntian were enjoying their idle conversation, a jade pendant on Zheng Yangshan's waist suddenly snapped into two, causing the color to drain out of his face. Not good. Old Master, what's wrong? Lin Fan inquired. This is a message from junior brother Yu Ling. Something must have happened over at the side of the Heavenly River Mountains. The face of Zheng Yangtian froze up. Junior brother Yu Ling is also an immortal king. For him to send out a distress call, I'm afraid that the side of the Moon Shadow mainland must have sent out a master god as well. Old Master, say no more. I'm going to head over to check it out. Lin Fan interjected immediately without hesitation. Zheng Yangtian's face changed. You've only just returned. For you to head out right away again. Lin Fan waved it off dismissively. Old Master, how can I sit by idly when it comes to affairs of the sect? Leave this matter to me. You guys don't have to come with me. I'm going now. How could Lin Fan possibly let this chance up? The only way for him to raise his strength right now was through those master gods. If he did not kill master gods, he would not gain any significant experience points. Pishu, Without waiting for Zheng Yangtian and the others to say anything more, Lin Fan left the sect immediately. Han Juntian could only sigh out, "Highs. He's truly a wonderful disciple. After this crisis is done with, I think it should be time for me to step down as well." Zheng Yangtian nodded his head and agreed in silence. Right now, Lin Fan was probably the only one qualified to be the Grand Master of the Heaven and Earth sect. Chapter 1122 Complete Annihilation. Chapter 1122 Complete Annihilation. Heavenly River Mountains. This was the most important line of defense in the entire Endless Mainland, and was guarded over by Old Master Yuling leading the charge with the other disciples. At the back of the Heavenly River Mountains were cities which were heavily populated by mortals. If the Heavenly River Mountains were to be breached, the lives of those mortals were as good as gone as well. Even though mortals were not really people who would be regarded seriously by cultivators, the fact still lay that mortals were practically the roots of every single sect. If all the mortals were gone, every single sect out there would eventually edge toward extinction. After all, no sect could live and last forever without the infusion of fresh blood. At that moment, Lin Fan floated gently between the heaven and earth. So, these are the Heavenly River Mountains. Looking at that majestic wall before him, Lin Fan let out a startled expression. For them to be able to build such a grand wall in the short period of time that they had after the Moon Shadow Mainland had invaded was something truly impressive indeed. The reason why he was here this time around was exactly to kill those Master Gods. There were only a limited number of Master Gods available from the Moon Shadow Mainland. Bumping into one of them would be considered rather lucky for Lin Fan right now. On the wall stood many disciples. While all of them were facing the direction of the invasion from the Moon Shadow Mainland, they just stood there absolutely motionlessly. Old Master Yuling. Landing on the wall, Lin Fan found out that Old Master Yuling was standing there at this moment as well. However, because things didn't seem quite right, Lin Fan stepped forth and patted him on his shoulders. But, to his astonishment, Old Master Yuling collapsed onto the ground face front as though he had lost every single bit of consciousness. Old Master Yuling. Lin Fan's face changed as he put on his guard right away. However, the entire place was eerily silent, there wasn't even a single breathing sound was to be heard, and all one could hear was the cricketing sounds of insects. A cold wind breezed by. Instantly, those disciples that were standing on the walls were knocked over by the wind and collapsed face front. Bubbles of sticky liquid oozed out from all over their bodies. It gave off an extremely pungent and choking smell that was repulsive to the maximum. Just what in the world is going on here? Lin Fan squatted down and touched the body of Old Master Yuling. However, with just a slight push, his entire body deflated in. Shredding the clothes off the back of Old Master Yuling, Lin Fan discovered black bugs the size of his fingernails that were crawling all over his skin. At his nape was a hole that looked as though an object had punctured its way into the body and sucked out all of the meat and flesh within, leaving nothing but a skin cover. Lin Fan scanned the entire area left and right, trying to see if there were any survivors remaining. Right at that moment, a single voice traveled over. Senior brother, please, save me. Far in the distance, a single disciple wobbled over. Lin Fan rushed right over and helped him up. Just what in the world is going on here? The scene right here was simply way too horrifying. Old Master Yuling was an immortal king. While he wasn't the strongest out of all of them, there was no reason why he should just die like that without making a single peep or letting them know of anything. Not only that, there were no signs of a battle breaking out around them at all. Just how in the world did they die then? Senior, brother, please save me. The voice of that disciple was hoarse as a green liquid oozed out from the sides of his mouth. There were tiny black spots squirming in his eyes as his entire face started grimacing while the back of his head was being contorted. Crack, crack, the sounds of bones cracking arose. Slapping his palm onto the body of this disciple, Lin Fan sent life force gushing right into him. However, in the blink of an eye, his eyes shone with a weird glint. Lin Fan had discovered that the body of this disciple was completely empty within. Every single organ was gone, and hell, even his blood was nearly drained completely. The reason why he was able to endure till now was probably that there was some foreign organism that was still devouring his body. Senator. IOR, bro, there. Save me. The face of that disciple looked more horrific by the moment as that body of his twisted and distorted repulsively. PSSSSCH. Suddenly, a single black spike burst out of his chest. With that, the final bit of light in the eyes of this disciple disappeared entirely. However, his lips were still twitching out as though he was still trying to beg out with that final cry for help. Just who in the world? Right now, Lin Fan's face was totally dark and bewildered at the same time. Everything was way too sinister in here. He then walked up furiously and spread out his palm before grabbing out at that black spike. Pulling it out violently, he roared, "Come on out." Suddenly, thin little bristles of hair sprouted out of that black spike, wanting to pierce Lin Fan's palm right away. However, given his strength, there was no way those spikes could possibly succeed. Shred, tearing it out of that body in a swift motion, Lin Fan discovered in surprise that this was just a black spike. However, there were many tiny, sharp claws lining it. At the same time, there was a pair of green eyes on the tip of the spike. Is it the insect race? Lin Fan wasn't too confident about that guess. This was extremely different from the insect race beings that he had come across before in the past. Creak, he broke it with a single squeeze, causing an unknown liquid to spill out onto the ground. There were dozens of thousands of disciples that were keeping guard over the Heavenly River Mountains. Furthermore, old Master Yu Ling was holding the fort. Just what sort of a master god from the Moon Shadow mainland could it be that could possess such capabilities to have old Master Yu Ling killed without anyone noticing it at all? And by the looks of it, that black spike really did seem as though it belonged to something from the insect race. Lin Fan took out his jade token and transmitted a trace of his consciousness back. Heavenly River Mountains has been breached. Old Master Yu Ling and the other disciples died through unknown means. Old Masters, you guys need to pay attention to this. Pishu. Lin Fan dove into the void and scanned his surroundings carefully. To think that there was no aura at all. Just where in the world did those fellas go off to? For them to breach the Heavenly River Mountains, there was definitely no way they were going to head back just like that. Furthermore, there were countless human cities in a radius of 1,000,000 miles around this area. Where in the world could they have gone to? Looking at the sight beneath him, Lin Fan felt his heart clench up slightly. Seemed like the invasion of the Moon Shadow mainland was not as simple as he had thought of it to be. The bloodshed caused was going to be endless. Damned be *stards, how dare you *ts kill those of my sect. From this day forth, yours truly swears that I will not be a human anymore unless I get every single one of you *kers killed. Lin Fan's body trembled, sending forth a mighty aura as an unparalleled sword will streaked out of his body. He then pointed out with his finger casually, sending thousands of sword wills slicing out through the heavens, locking the entire region of the Heavenly River Mountains. Even though those sword wills would not be able to stop Master Gods, as long as anyone were to pass through, he would be able to sense it. Essence Spirit Doppelganger. Instantly, the entire sky was filled with a dense army of Lin Fans. All of those were his Essence Spirit Doppelgangers. Go hunt them out, Lin Fan bellowed out as his Essence Spirit Doppelgangers got to work immediately, scattering in all directions. Standing there, Lin Fan waited patiently. This Master God was most likely not simple to deal with, he would have to be careful himself as well. However, it might be hard for him to save all of those cities. Shing. Suddenly, one of his Essence Spirit Doppelgangers sent out a signal from the southeast direction. At the same time, that Essence Spirit Doppelganger had disappeared all of a sudden. Evidently, it must have been done in by the other side. Lin Fan did not think twice as he bolted toward the southeast direction. As long as he were to find the other side, he would definitely have them killed for real. He leapt through one city after another up in the sky. And indeed, it was just as Lin Fan had thought, none of them could be salvaged. All of those mortals were just standing there absolutely motionlessly. However, their life force was gone completely by now. Evidently, they must have met the other side. Found them. At that moment, Lin Fan caught sight of a pitch-black object that was pulsating out rapidly. Every single place it passed, the entire area was left barren, without a single bit of life left. Chapter 1123 I've overestimated you. Chapter 1123, I've overestimated you. A single glance over and Lin Fan could tell that this pitch-black object was crawling away extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it was several miles away as though it had teleported. Doomsday Calamity. Lin Fan roared out as a Doomsday Calamity aura burst out behind him like a waterfall, blanketing the entire heaven and earth. He then hurled out a single punch that brought forth an unrivaled might. All of you can just *cking go to hell. He had not expected that the powers of these guys would be this sinister, such that they could have dozens of thousands of disciples killed without anyone noticing at all. That was way too terrifying. When the Doomsday aura burst forth, a tremendous might descended down from the skies, slamming toward that pitch-black object. All of a sudden, a shrill, sharp sound reverberated through the entire void as that black object suddenly came to a stop. Under the bewildered watch of Lin Fan, he witnessed how that pitch-black object suddenly began to converge down and shrink before disappearing from the world entirely. This was a scene that had him feeling extremely befuddled, not knowing what was going on at all. He could not help but start to get cautious. For that gigantic black mass to just suddenly disappear without a trace, that was something seeming pretty impossible in his mind. Pioch! All of a sudden, Lin Fan discovered a black dot staining his body. He would never ever forget what that was. He had seen these black dots on the bodies of those disciples and old Master Yuling. All of a sudden, the number of black dots starting increasing until they enveloped Lin Fan entirely. When he took a closer look at those black dots, he started to realize that they were actually some extremely disturbing-looking black insects. Ding! Experience points +1. The notification of the system rang out. This was an increase of his physical body state's experience points. Those skittering black insects were trying to attack him at this very moment. Courting death. All of a sudden, Lin Fan's entire body was covered out with a fiery, blazing flame that incinerated those black insects to death right away. Under the ferocious blaze, all of those black insects gave off extremely miserable screeches. Those sounds were crisp, yet somewhat sunken and hollow at the same time. One after another, bunches of them peeled off him and dropped down before burning into ashes completely and scattering out into the face of the world. Come out! Just who in the world are you? Lin Fan focused his gaze at the void and hollered out fiercely. Right now, he had finally understood the reason why all of those disciples had died without being able to put up a fight at all. It was only after those insects landed on his body that Lin Fan had realized their existences. If that was the case even for him, there was naturally no way that those disciples could have avoided it at all. His physical body state was extremely formidable, such that he was able to defend against the attacks of those black insects. But, if it were those disciples, they might be able to do nothing except get bitten. To think that there would be an indigenous being that can actually withstand the attacks of my lovely children. At that moment, the entire void quivered out as a lone figure came into Lin Fan's vision. Narrowing his gaze, Lin Fan could tell that despite having a humanoid shape, that figure was not human. There were 6 insect feelers extending out of its back, with an entire body of armor. However, the color of that armor was changing continuously, and seemed as though it was pulsating. Only when he inspected it keenly did Lin Fan realize it was an armor completely made up of those insects. Just who in the world are you? Lin Fan asked. Haha, indigenous being, remember this now, your master god is the insect race master god. The insect race master god floated gently up in the void and spoke with a booming voice. At the same time, there was an extremely chilling aura that was sinister beyond anything else. Insect race master god, is it? Lin Fan asked softly before observing the other. The strength of this insect race master god was not as formidable as that of the boundless future Buddha Lord. Yet, his attacks must be extremely crafty as well. Lin Fan felt that he should be careful against this guy. But, whether or not this insect race master god was someone with crafty methods, the outcome of this meetup was already determined. He would have to die no matter what. All of you indigenous beings are just way too weak. Earlier on, all of those indigenous beings were devoured whole by my children. One of them is coming to my mind ever clearer now. Ah, that immortal king state powerful being. Far too weak. Even at his death, he did not even know how he died. That is truly pathetic. The insect race master god laughed out. But each time he laughed, that menacing insect mouth would cause one to feel repulsed with its opening. Go to hell. Bam! Lin Fan stomped down, furiously slamming out at the insect race master god. As he used his immortal art to suppress down, a bright burst of light shone out, bringing forth an unparalleled force that struck out with a boundless intent at this moment. Indigenous being, stop with your futile efforts. You will never be able to win against me in battle. The insect race master god snorted out coldly as he opened his mouth out widely, sending forth a huge insect sea gushing out. Wherever that insect sea passed by, even the void was corroded. On the other side, Lin Fan took out his eternal axe, sending a radiant axe flash searing through the place. Splitting the entire heaven with a single cleave of his axe, he slammed it down at the insect sea. After being cleaved apart by Lin Fan, the blood chi of the insect sea did not dissipate out in the void. Instead, it continued sizzling before flowing out just like water and wrapping up Lin Fan from all directions. Insect sea, the insect race master god howled out with a shrill voice as those 6 insect feelers were wriggling angrily. The blood chi of those insects that were spilled out earlier on wrapped Lin Fan up entirely. The power of corrosion within it was exceptionally horrifying. Lin Fan laughed out coldly as he bolted out, piercing through that entire insect sea and rushing right for the insect race master god. How could this be? The insect race master god was alarmed, evidently filled with disbelief. How could the other party just disregard the blood chi of his insect race entirely? Go to hell. The entire void exploded out as a formidable might burst forth from Lin Fan's body. Slamming out at the heavens with a single palm, he locked the insect race master god down entirely, not giving it the slightest chance of escape. Insect armor. A dense number of insects started floating out of the armor that he was wearing before converging into the shape of a shield, blocking off Lin Fan's escape path. Insect race master god, I've overestimated you. Is this all that you've got? Lin Fan scoffed out frostily as the source of power within his body gushed out, boiling with a bubbling sound while his powers rose rapidly. An aura that seemed capable of devastating everything erupted out of Lin Fan and slammed forth at that insect armor. Boom. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. A boundless power burst forth, causing a series of shockwaves to ripple out with the insect armor as the center. The face of the insect race master god took a stark change, evidently in disbelief. He had just felt a power that was impossible to defend against bolting out at him. Creak. The insect armor started to crack out just like a spider web. Crack, crack. The number of cracks was increasing as though it could shatter at any moment. Insect race master god, go to hell. Lin Fan roared out as his powers gushed forth from within, shattering the insect armor completely. A beam of light penetrated it and struck out on the bare body of the insect race master god. All of those insects that were shrouding the body of the insect race master god were shrieking out shrilly as an opening was torn apart in it. To think that even the god core of the insect race master god could be seen through it. Bam! The insect race master god flew backward as he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. He then raised his head and glared right at Lin Fan with a look filled with absolute incredulity. Indigenous being, you, the insect race master god could not imagine everything that had happened right now. He could not dare to believe that this indigenous being could actually strike through his insect armor and injure him. In his mind, this was something that seemed absolutely impossible. But, when the reality was laid bare before him like this, he had no other choice but to believe in it. At that moment, the insect race master god was even having thoughts of escaping. He had been too careless. It was a mistake to belittle the strength of this indigenous being. Chapter 1124 Kill. Chapter 1124, Kill. Thinking of running, Lin Fan stood there firmly. He had already seen through the thoughts in the insect race master god's mind. Licking off the fresh blood from the side of his lips before glaring at Lin Fan with a malevolent expression, the master god said. Indigenous being, don't think that you're capable of killing me. You don't have what it takes. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. Is that so? Then, we'll just have to wait and see if I've got what it takes, won't we? Lin Fan chuckled coldly. Today, he was going to kill yet another one of these master gods. With that, the 72 master gods would go down to 69. The insect race master god looked at this indigenous being warily before roaring furiously. His back wriggled out as though something was about to break out of it. PSCHHHHHHHHH. In that instant, a metamorphosis occurred. A pair of insect wings burst out of the insect race master god's body and extended out, bringing with it a sticky, gooey liquid that covered it completely, looking extremely grotesque. There were mysterious patterns etched on those insect wings, giving off a dim glow of their own. Source sealing technique. Lin Fan did not hesitate at all as he propped up the heavens with both palms, causing the powers within his body to rumble out furiously as he laid down the source sealing technique over the entire world. He could sense that the insect race master god was prepared to leave this place now. Indigenous being, I'll be back. The insect race master god roared out as he flapped both wings rapidly, vanishing from where he was instantaneously. That was a speed that surpassed everything, to the point one could not even follow it with their bare eyes. Bam! Arg! That hurts. All of a sudden, the insect race master god found his head bleeding somewhere far in the distance. One of his insect wings was bent and broken while bleeding out continuously as his eyes shone out with a look of disbelief. How could this be? What have you done to the heaven and earth? Why am I unable to leave this place? The insect race master god screamed out. Looking at the state the insect race master god was in, Lin Fan smirked out. Ever since this source sealing technique of his had been evolved into an immortal art, its might was far from ordinary. While it had no offensive capabilities of its own, it excelled in sealing the entire heaven and earth. Since the insect race master god wasn't someone from the endless mainland, he naturally did not know about this mystic skill. Now that he was trying to make his escape, the fact that he collided with such a huge impact because of that sprint of his was within Lin Fan's expectations. But at the same time, Lin Fan was grateful that he was such a smart fella and had prepared himself well early on. Otherwise, given the speed of that insect race master god, he might truly not have been able to hold him back if the latter really wanted to escape. In the mere blink of an eye, he had vanished just like that. The only thing that Lin Fan could catch sight of was an afterimage. But of course, the fact that the insect race master god was in this current state had him chuckling out nevertheless. Taking a step forward, Lin Fan appeared right before the face of the insect race master god and scoffed out, "Your death sentence has arrived." Alarmed, the insect race master god used his feelers to pierce Lin Fan. Splock. The insect race master god's face revealed a smirk. He had sensed that his feelers had managed to penetrate through the other party's body. He then roared out in furious laughter, "Ha ha ha ha." But all of a sudden, his face turned into one of fright. To think that this indigenous being before him would actually grab his feeler with one hand instead. As for his other hand, it was raised up high before crashing down onto his head. Insect race master god, given the current situation, I doubt you're going to be able to escape any longer. This single palm strike of Lin Fan's brought with it an incredible amount of power. It was something that possessed countless immortal arts and mystic skills. There was even a destructive aura mixed within. No, the insect race master god howled out with an endless fright spreading out in his eyes as he fought and struggled furiously. But in the blink of an eye, bam, explode, the head of the insect race master god was split wide open. From the area of that wound, insects wriggled and squirmed out one after another while the entire place was filled with his voice, "You will never be able to kill me. I am the insect race master god. You will never be able to kill me. If I can't kill you with a single strike, I guess I'll just have to strike a couple more times then." Lin Fan snapped the feeler of the insect race master god that was inside his body immediately as his life force churned out and healed up his injury in the blink of an eye. His body flashed as he appeared behind the back of the insect race master god. He then grabbed both of his insect wings and kicked his leg onto his back for support before giving it a tight ring. Shred. Blood sprayed out in the sky as a pair of insect wings were ripped off just like that, followed by a tragic cry being howled out. If your god core is gone, what else can you do? Driving his palm right into the chest of the insect race master god, Lin Fan grabbed the god core within his body and ripped it out. Looking at that gray god core in his hands, Lin Fan let out a smirk. How about now? The moment the god core left the body of the insect race master god, his aura started diminishing rapidly. "Return me my god core." Lin Fan looked at the insect race master god before him as his lips curled out into a grin. "Do you think that's possible? You've killed countless of my junior brothers, and yet you're begging for your life now. That has got to be a bloody dream. I was thinking about tormenting you slowly and endlessly, but to prevent unnecessary troubles, I guess I'll just have you kill you outright." Creak. Lin Fan's fingers gripped tighter with more strength as the god core in his hand started to crack even more. "No," the shrill voice of the insect race master god screamed as though he had just felt the most horrifying thing ever known in the entire world. Bam! The god core exploded out, turning into specks of stardust. The body of the insect race master god started convulsing before breaking down into pieces one after another. Creak. In the blink of an eye, he turned into small little pieces that were scattered throughout the heaven and earth. Ding. Congratulations on killing the insect race master god. Ding. Experience points plus. Finally, he was killed. Lin Fan heaved in a huge breath of air. The insect race master god did not have him feel any pressure at all. At the same time, he felt that the reason why the latter was killed by him this quickly was that he was being way too careless. The main reason was that Lin Fan's physical body state was overly strong, such that some of the insect race master god's methods could not be deployed at all. And with that pair of insect wings of the insect race master god which were extremely fast, if not for Lin Fan's source sealing technique that was laid down, it would have been impossible for him to stop the insect race master god from escaping. And, the final and most crucial point was that the insect race master god was a dumb *CK himself. He was the one who had bumped into the source sealing barrier and had his entire head smashed in by himself. What did that have to do with Lin Fan? Checking his experience points, Lin Fan discovered that they had indeed grown by quite a bit. But, it was a pity that there was still quite some distance from the Heavenly Lord state. All of a sudden, the void started trembling out as Zheng Yangtian appeared. Just what in the world is going on here? After receiving Lin Fan's news, Zheng Yangtian was stunned. The breach of the Heavenly River Mountains. The fall of junior brother Yuling. The massacre of countless of disciples. This was a blow that was simply way too great for Zheng Yangtian. Because of that, He rushed over right away upon receiving the news so that he could find out just exactly what was happening for himself. Lin Fan looked over at Zheng Yangtian. Old Master, the insect race Master God brought his massive army and descended here, breaching through the entire Heavenly River Mountains. The insect race Master God. Zheng Yangtian was stumped before turning around to look at Lin Fan. Then, I've just had the insect race Master God slain. This would have been considered as me avenging them. Lin Fan replied. At the same time, his mind was now moving on to ponder about another issue entirely. Defending forever was not going to be the best option out there for them. The only way to resolve everything should be for them to take the initiative at attacking the other party. Zheng Yangtian was solemn right now, feeling pained in his heart. Junior brother Yu Ling, countless of disciples. All of them dead, just like that. This was truly a huge blow for his heart. Old Master, I feel that we should gather all of our forces for a combined attack. If we were to just continue defending like this and let them take the momentum, it is going to be extremely disadvantageous for us. Lin Fan raised his suggestion. Zheng Yangtian waved it off with his hand. We'll go over to the side of the Heavenly River Mountains and bring all of their corpses back home first. Lin Fan nodded his head in agreement. Regarding this matter, the best thing was most probably for them to head back and discuss it thoroughly. Chapter 1125 The Frost Master God Strikes. Chapter 1125 The Frost Master God Strikes. Heavenly River Mountains. When the old master arrived there and caught sight of everything before him, his heart wrenched up in pain. These were all disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect. And to think that even his very own junior brother would have fallen to the hands of the enemy. For the old master who had never once felt sad about anything, he could not help but let out a drop of tear at this moment. Lin Fan stepped forward. Old Master, the only thing we can do right now is to gather our strongest powers and go against those master gods of the Moon Shadow mainland. We're going to make them pay a terrible price for this. Zheng Yangtian nodded his head and swept his robes. An immortal weapon floated gently up in the void, and he kept all those corpses of his disciples within it. Turning around to look at Lin Fan, he continued, all right. We'll head back first. The might of the Endless Mainland was not weaker than the Moon Shadow mainland on the whole. The issue lay with the upper tiers of the immortal king state beings. In that regard, the Endless Mainland was quite a bit weaker than the Moon Shadow mainland. This was especially the case now that the boundless future Buddha Lord had chosen to work together with the Master Gods. Not only that, those few other ancient immortal kings had chosen to just sit by idly and ignore secular events while committing all their energy toward the Heavenly Lord state. If those ancient immortal kings of the Endless Mainland could stand with them, in terms of the highest tiers of power, the Endless Mainland would be able to win against the Moon Shadow mainland. But of course, even right now, Lin Fan did not feel as though the Endless Mainland was weaker than the Moon Shadow mainland. Right now, there were only 69 out of those 72 Master Gods left. As long as he were to work on it slowly and start by killing the weakest ones first before moving up layer by layer, he would definitely be able to have all of those Master Gods slain. As for that fella, the boundless future Buddha Lord, killing that guy would be more difficult of a task still. However, Lin Fan was leaving that soap all for him. Heaven and Earth sect. Upon hearing the news of everyone at the Heavenly River Mountains falling, Han Juntian was just completely dumbstruck. That was thousands of their disciples. And the loss of old Master Yu Ling was an exceptionally grave loss for the Heaven and Earth sect. Lin Fan, what are your thoughts on this? Zheng Yangtian asked. Lin Fan went silent for a moment. Gather every single immortal king we have and fight with the Moon Shadow mainland for a duel to the death. This was Lin Fan's plan, the plan he had the most confidence in. If they were to engage in a group fight, Lin Fan would have the greatest confidence of getting those Master Gods killed. By then, his experience points would skyrocket, and his own strength would be raised, allowing him to completely exert control over the tides of the battle. But of course, those were just the thoughts that he had. Who knew what might happen exactly by then? When Zheng Yangtian heard that, he let out a slightly troubled look. I'm afraid that it might not be too easy to accomplish. Lin Fan was taken aback. Why, who is going to take the front line? Zheng Yangtian returned the question. Why do we need anyone to take the front line? Given the current situation, if we're just going to continue and let ourselves be scattered out like sand, the eventual outcome is clear. Naturally, every single place will start being breached. All of those Master Gods of the Moon Shadow mainland are extremely united. With the boundless future Buddha Lord adding to the mess right now, it's very hard to tell what's going to happen later on. By the time the strength of the Endless Mainland diminishes down to a certain extent, it's going to be useless even if we group up. And indeed, there was nothing wrong with the way that Lin Fan had described things. The reason why the Moon Shadow mainland had not launched a full frontal assault was that they knew that the strength of the Endless mainland might not be weaker than theirs. Even after taking off the good and evil Buddha sect of the boundless future Buddha Lord, the number of immortal king state beings in the other remaining 8 sects was nowhere lesser than the master gods of the Moon Shadow mainland. At the same time, there were quite a number of master gods from the Moon Shadow mainland who did not possess much strength. If they were to fall into Lin Fan's hands, their fates would definitely involve getting chopped to death. While Zhang Yangtian was definitely approving of Lin Fan's point of view, things were never that simple. Your thinking is wonderful indeed. However, you have to know that the forces are divided out into the 9 sects, 6 residences, 3 holes, and the 72 gangs. How could they possibly be united that easily? You have to know that every single immortal king represents a paramount importance to their individual sects. Lin Fan sighed out. This was bloody mother seeking annoying. All of those fellas were really people who would not drop a single tear till they saw the coffin. Unless they were at the most critical moment, they wouldn't know of true fear. Leaving the depths of the sect, Lin Fan returned to his mountain peak. He then started contemplating about the issues that he was going to face. Right now, his strength could no longer be considered weak. However, he still did not have that much of a shot at victory when it came to dealing with the boundless future Buddha Lord. If he could reach the same state the boundless future Buddha Lord was in, there was a high possibility that he could have the latter slain. Even though the various sects out there were already coming forth to fight against the Moon Shadow mainland, every single individual sect was still retaining some strength. There was no way the old masters of those sects would be that foolish. Some of the sects that were in the deeper areas of the Endless mainland were even just sitting by idly. After all, by the time the Moon Shadow mainland were to come invade, those sects at the front would have no other choice but to defend even if they didn't want to. As for those sects, Lin Fan truly did not wish to say anything more to them. They were really FCKED up pieces of sh*t. And at that moment in the Oceanic region hollows. This place used to be a secret ground. However, after going through the invasion of the Moon Shadow mainland, this entire secret ground had long been trampled over. One of the 9 sects, the Emperor Dao sect, had their disciples come and protect the Oceanic region hollows to prevent the invasion of the Moon Shadow mainland. Some of the senior old masters of the Emperor Dao sect were feeling an extremely huge headache over the current situation. The location of their sect wasn't all that great, and was somewhat close to where the Moon Shadow mainland was invading from. As long as the Moon Shadow mainland were to invade it, they would definitely collide and meet with the Emperor Dao sect. And, it wasn't as though those old masters could just uproot the entire sect and move it. Therefore, they had no other choice but to defend. For the past period of time, there had been countless of deaths among their disciples. But, that was something they could do nothing about. At this moment in that Oceanic region hollows, the disciples of the Emperor Dao sect were resting while some of them were out patrolling. I wonder when those outsiders from the Moon Shadow mainland will come attacking us. One of those disciples claimed worriedly. I don't think they'll be coming anytime soon. The previous time around, our old master came forth personally and chased back those living beings from the Moon Shadow mainland. Naturally, they must know about the prowess of our old master. How could they dare to come and continue invading anymore? That makes sense as well. As the disciples conversed amongst themselves, they were still feeling rather on the edge. The main reason for that was that the methods of those living beings from the Moon Shadow mainland were way too crafty. All of a sudden, one of the disciples sneezed out. It's so cold, why did the weather just turn so frosty all of a sudden? Check it out, there's a figure heading over from the distance. One of the disciples focused his gaze over. It doesn't seem like it's the invasion from the Moon Shadow mainland. It looks to be a lone woman. The masses were stumped, evidently fraught with disbelief. How could there be a woman who would make her way over to a place as such? I'll go and check it out. A disciple wearing green robes remarked before heading over for the woman. Lady, who are you? This is an extremely dangerous place. You had better leave quickly. The green-robed disciple commented. But the closer he got to the woman, the more he felt the temperature dipping. At that moment, that woman said nothing at all, she was just walking ever so silently and quietly. Every single step she took, she would leave a frosty imprint as a trail beneath her foot. The green-robed disciple was extremely bewildered. Why wasn't this woman talking at all? He then headed up to touch her, wanting to stop her in her tracks. But all of a sudden, he felt a frosty chill surging into his body. In fact, he didn't even manage to say a single word more before he was frozen solid, turning into an ice sculpture. All of the disciples of the Emperor Dao sect were just laughing out merrily. What's junior brother doing? Why isn't he moving at all? I've got no idea. The moment he saw that it was a woman, he could not help it but be the first one to rush up. Ha 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 ha. The masses were roaring out in laughter. But all of a sudden, one of the disciples who was sharper realized that something was not right. The ground was frozen by a single layer of frost. Not only that, the frost was extending out. Watch out! A disciple exclaimed out, but in the blink of an eye, he was frozen as well. When the other disciples caught sight of this, they went all frantic. Hurry and fly up into the void. There's something wrong with the ground. Pishu, Pishu. One by one, those disciples flew up into the void. But suddenly, they realized that the void was extremely frosty as well, and in a flash, they were all turned into ice sculptures that fell onto the ground from way up high. Smash! And just like that, they all broke into pieces. As the woman moved forward step by step, the surrounding heaven and earth were slowly turning into a world of frost. Out in the heaven and earth, layers of frost floated gently. The Frost Master God had arrived. Looking at everything around her, she curled out into a smile. Ice sculptures are still the best at the end of the day. At that moment, some of the senior old masters of the Emperor Dao sect who were stationed here realized that something was going on outside, so they floated out into the void. Narrowing their gazes, they looked into the distance. Just who are you? The Frost Master God raised her head before giving a gentle smile. As she raised her finger, the frost turned berserk. The expression of the senior old master was horrified, to think that both of his arms were covered instantly by a layer of ice. Not only that, the powers within his body were all completely frozen up, and were unable to be channeled. In the blink of an eye, he was turned into an ice sculpture without even having a single chance of fighting back at all. Chapter 1126 seems rather dangerous. Chapter 1126 seems rather dangerous. A few days later, Lin Fan got to know about an alarming piece of news. One of the 9 sects, the Emperor Dao sect, had been destroyed, and their disciples were all fleeing away. The northern region had completely turned into a land of frost. In Lin Fan's mind, this was something that was absolutely incredulous. While the Emperor Dao sect might have been the weakest of the 9 sects, there was no reason why they could have been destroyed at such a speed. And to his greatest bewilderment, it was the fact that that vast area up in the north had been covered completely with frost. It didn't take long before Lin Fan was summoned over by the old master. In the depths of the sect. Upon arriving, Lin Fan asked out hurriedly, "Old master, just what in the world happened?" Zhang Yangtian's face was grim right now. I also just got the news that the Emperor Dao sect had been destroyed entirely. For some absurd reason, the entire northern region is completely covered with frost. When all of the surrounding smaller sects realized the changes, they managed to withdraw from the area in time. In my opinion, this must be the work of one of the master gods from the Moon Shadow mainland. I don't think so, right? If it were a master god of the Moon Shadow mainland, how is it that we did not notice and hear anything at all? Lin Fan could not believe it. How could any of the master gods from the Moon Shadow mainland possess such incredible abilities to actually freeze up the entire northern region without anyone noticing until it was all too late? Zhang Yangtian shook his head. I've got no idea, but the situation doesn't look optimistic at all. I'm afraid that the Moon Shadow mainland must have already started invading in from the north, and is going to turn that entire place into their base. All the other living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland from the other areas have already withdrawn back as well. This means that they truly must have managed to breach into our main grounds. To think that we've only realized it at this point in time. It's too late now. Lin Fan wanted to go check it out, because in his opinion, this was something that should have been impossible. Just what sort of a master god could possibly possess such capabilities? This was absolutely incredulous. Old master, I wish to go check it out, Lin Fan said. The issue with the boundless future Buddha Lord was already a huge headache for Lin Fan. And now, there was another sicko like this coming from the Moon Shadow mainland. If this were something caused by a group of people, then so be it. But, if it truly were a single master god, then that was going to be really horrifying. Zhang Yangtian was a little worried. This might get really dangerous. I'd suggest for you not to. Lin Fan waved it off with his hand. If I don't head over, we will never ever find out what's going on at that side. Don't worry, even if I can't win against the other party, saving my own neck wouldn't be an issue at all. Eventually, Zhang Yangtian did not say anything more, and Lin Fan rushed over to the north. Han Juntian spoke up at this moment, "Old master, let me go as well then. If anything untoward were to happen, at least we can cover for one another." Zhang Yangtian nodded his head. In the records of the sect, there had never been a precedence for something like this. Therefore, they truly had no idea what was going on. Lin Fan left the sect and rushed over to the north. A few days later, as Lin Fan arrived at the area, he was totally astounded by the sight that greeted him. The entire sky was snow white, without an end in sight. Chilling winds gusted and howled out across the heaven and earth. Landing on the ground, Lin Fan stepped a foot into the frost. Shing! With that, he felt an ice-cold typhoon ripping out at him. So cold, Lin Fan's brows furrowed. His physical body state was already rather accomplished, and yet, he could fully feel and experience the coldness that was brought forth by that wind. Lin Fan did not linger on as he continued pushing forward. A long time later, he caught sight of a group of people walking in this world of frost. By the looks of it, they seemed as though they were about to die. Who are you guys? Lin Fan descended down from the void and asked. The group of people were wearing the same set of uniform, they should be disciples from the same sect. However, all of their bodies were covered with a thick layer of frost as they shivered uncontrollably. When one's strength was cultivated to such a state, they should have long been able to disregard the changes of the weather. But, to think that these people could be frozen by a layer of frost right now, that was something truly incredible. When those people first caught sight of someone actually appearing before them, they were shocked. But, after realizing that it was someone from the endless mainland, they broke out in shivering voices, "Save us! We are disciples of the Emperor Dao's sect." Looking at how weak the auras of these people here were, Lin Fan knew that if he did not step in to save them, they were most likely just going to die here. Those frightfully pale faces of theirs started flushing with a tender redness as their auras started rising back once more, helping their voice get clearer as well. "Thank you," the masses shouted out in gratitude. They did not know what was happening the entire time. They had the ability to fly, however, when they were up in the void, they started to realize that the icy winds blowing out at them were getting stronger and colder with time, causing their powers to seem frozen up. Hence, they could not do anything at all. Eventually, they had no other choice but to walk manually. At the start, it was still tolerable, but as time slipped by, their movements started to get sluggish as though they were freezing up as well. With no way out, they were just crawling their feet ahead one step after another. "I am from the Heaven and Earth sect. Just what in the world has the Emperor Dao sect met with? How has this entire northern region turned as such?" Lin Fan's heart was filled with questions. "Woman," the leader of the group of disciples answered with a single word. "Woman." Lin Fan was stunned. What had all of this got to do with women? When that disciple spoke of the woman, his entire face was filled with shock as though he had just seen the scariest thing in the world. That woman was way too horrifying. Wherever she passed by, the entire place would be frozen up. The elders, Grand Master, and even old masters of the sect were no match for her. Before they could even see the other party make any moves, they were frozen up into ice sculptures. Noticing how everything didn't seem right, we broke off into a run immediately. However, that woman didn't seem bothered about us in the slightest bit. Otherwise, there was no way we could run out at all if she was bent on killing us. That disciple answered in shock. He had not expected that there could possibly be such a terrifying existence out in this world. By the time that woman had arrived at the Emperor Dao sect, the entire world was turned into a world of frost. Despite their elders and Grand Master deploying their strongest mystic skills ever, that woman didn't even budge a single inch. With just a single glance, she caused the Grand Master and the others to freeze up entirely. Lin Fan frowned. Could this really be a Master God of the Moon Shadow Mainland? However, which Master God could it be to possess such horrifying strength and might? Those old masters of the Emperor Dao sect were no ordinary people, they were all immortal king state beings. This was especially the case for old Master Emperor Immortal. He was someone who wasn't weaker than Zheng Yangtian at all. But, to think that he could have been frozen with just a single look of the other party, this was totally inconceivable. But at that point, Lin Fan's thoughts suddenly moved to a startling realization: could that woman be of the Heavenly Lord state? But, that shouldn't be the case. If there were a powerful being of the Heavenly Lord state on the side of the Moon Shadow Mainland, she should have mowed the entire path over from the beginning. Things would not have even had a chance to get to this state. Lin Fan planned on going to take a peek sneakily. "You guys head over to the Heaven and Earth sect first. It's safer there for the time being." "Are you going to head forth?" one of the disciples asked. "Yes." Lin Fan nodded his head. "I'd advise you not to head up, honestly. That horrifying woman is not the only thing there. All the other living beings of the Moon Shadow Mainland are there as well. There's completely no hope for you to head over at all. At the same time, your powers will start to freeze up in this chilling frost, causing you to get frozen by it eventually. Against Lin Fan, the frost had no effect at all. Therefore, he disregarded it completely, waving it off with his hand. You guys just leave first. Looking at how insistent he was about going forward, they did not try to persuade him out of it anymore. After the masses left, Lin Fan looked at the distance as his mind started to whirl. Seemed like the situation was rather dangerous right now. Chapter 1127 I was the one. Chapter 1127, I was the one. One can never dream about obtaining the cub without facing the tiger. No matter how dangerous this is, I will have to give it a shot. Who knows, I may even get some surprising rewards out of it. That was the way that Lin Fan thought about things. But, the way that those disciples were talking about things did come across as rather frightening. And by the looks of that frost, based on psychology studies, that woman must definitely be mental. Lin Fan definitely had to be more careful when it came to meeting such a twisted person. Without hesitating, Lin Fan dove into the void immediately. In this world of frost, there were many living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland that were setting up base here. And, it seemed as though those frosty winds could recognize them as they gusted around them and blew by. These armies here were huge and majestic. Lin Fan did not step in to strike at them at all, as he did not want to arouse their attention. This time around, he was only here to scout out things. If things were not that dangerous, he would strike out immediately. But, if they were, he would have to hold it steady and play it safe. Stealth mode. While he was moving in stealth mode, there was no difference whether or not he was in stealth mode. However, he still felt more at ease when he was moving in stealth mode. Otherwise, it would always feel as though something was missing. Soon, Lin Fan arrived at the place where the frost intent was the strongest. This was the base of the Emperor Dao sect. Right now, that entire base of the Emperor Dao sect had been occupied. Lin Fan realized that there were many ice sculptures outside the Emperor Dao sect, all in various weird stances. It was as though they had been frozen up instantaneously and retained the final poses before they died. What a bloody sicko! Lin Fan could not help but lament over this sight. With the dense cluster of ice sculptures, the entire place had just been turned into an exhibition of ice sculptures entirely. To think that there could be someone with methods as such to be able to freeze everyone up like this. And by the looks of it, no huge fight had happened at this place at all. This was clearly enough to tell that those people of the Emperor Dao sect did not have a single chance of fighting back at all. Right at that moment, an icy cold voice sounded out in the void. Yet another fine material for an ice sculpture has appeared. The moment Lin Fan heard that voice, he jumped as though he had just seen a ghost. To think that he would bloody be discovered even at this moment. Did she have to be so king strong? With that, Lin Fan didn't even have to think at all before bolting right into the void, sprinting for his life. There was no need to even see the other party to know that she was absolutely going to be incredibly strong. He might truly not be a match for her after all. Retreat. At times, one should really run if they knew that they couldn't beat the other party in a fight. This was especially the case for an opponent as such. If he were to not run, what could he do? Wait to get abused? In the blink of an eye, he bolted off, crossing 1,000 miles in a single run. But right at that moment, Lin Fan realized that there was already a single voice waiting for him up ahead. The figure of a woman. A single glance over and Lin Fan could tell that the aura of the other party was even stronger than the boundless future Buddha Lord. Not only that, this aura was extremely cold. Now that they were so near, this was literally bone-chilling. Lin Fan coughed out gently, "Who are you? I'm only passing by here." The Frost Master God turned around. But when Lin Fan caught sight of that face, he was stunned. Water Master God. Pishu. In a flash, that figure disappeared. Next thing Lin Fan knew, she was standing right before his face. In that very moment, Lin Fan suddenly felt a cold, frosty feeling spreading from his chest as he bolted backward right away in astonishment. He was absolutely alarmed right now. Such speed. The Frost Master God looked at Lin Fan. "You've met my sister before." The moment Lin Fan heard that, he froze for a moment. The Water Master God was the sister of this sicko right here. Then, he could absolutely not let her know about the way he had abused the Water Master God to death so miserably. There was no wonder now why this Frost Master God looked so similar to that Water Master God. However, what Lin Fan could not understand was how the difference in strength between the Water Master God and the Frost Master God could be this huge. This was practically a world of a difference. Just as Lin Fan was hesitating, the aura of the Frost Master God turned even sharper. All the snowflakes floating out in the void suddenly turned into snow crystals, dipping the temperature even lower, such that even the void seemed as though it was freezing up. "You've met my sister before." The ice-cold voice traveled out once more, even colder than it was before. Lin Fan's heart froze up before he let out a frightened expression. "I don't dare to say anything. I'm afraid I may be killed after I say it." The eyes of the Frost Master God turned icy. "If you don't say it, I'll kill you." Lin Fan looked over at the Frost Master God before speaking up. The boundless future Buddha Lord was the one who had her killed. Right now, the Frost Master God was silent. Lin Fan did not know what exactly was going on. But no matter what, she should give a reply at least, right? In a split second, the aura of the Frost Master God was locked onto Lin Fan. "You're lying." Lin Fan started to cuss out at her mother in his heart right away. However, the words that he said out were just like water splashed over. No matter what, he was going to lay the blame onto the boundless future Buddha Lord. Otherwise, he swore that his surname wouldn't be Lin anymore. "I'm not." Lin Fan looked at the Frost Master God straight in her eye, without any bit of fear in his heart. HMPH. Courting death. The Frost Master God's body flashed out as she appeared before Lin Fan instantly, bursting forth with a frosty aura. Lin Fan discovered to his horror that his entire body was showing signs of freezing up. Creak, creak. His entire body was being covered by the frost such that he was unable to escape at all. Lin Fan could finally feel what all those people were talking about earlier on. The powers within his body were genuinely starting to congeal right now such that he couldn't channel them at all. The Frost Master God looked at Lin Fan. The consequences of telling a lie is death. Lin Fan tried his hardest best to fight against the frost. However, there was nothing he could do about it. He then roared out, "Why do you refuse to believe me? The boundless future Buddha Lord does not have the guts." Holy FCK. Just that single reply was something that rendered Lin Fan entirely speechless. To think that he couldn't find any words to refute that statement at all. The boundless future Buddha Lord was craftier than anyone else, and had an extremely formidable might. But, to think that in the eyes of the Frost Master God, the bald monk didn't have the guts to do that. Just what sort of might and prowess should one possess to have that sort of confidence level? At this moment, Lin Fan did not have much time to waste considering other stuff. His body was gradually being frozen up, and if he did not come up with any plan soon, he would definitely turn into an ice sculpture. Pills through thought. Lin Fan's palm suddenly burst forth with a ball of flames. The heat from that fire caused the layer of frost to melt away instantly. At the same time, the powers in his body started channeling out once more. The face of the Frost Master God was perplexed, as though she could not believe that this indigenous being was able to melt her frost. Lin Fan bolted far away from the Frost Master God instantly. The strength of that woman was truly sick indeed, and there was no way for him to comprehend those powers she had over frost. There was no wonder why the entire world was being affected by the frost that she was producing. He definitely had to think up of a way to escape this place no matter what. The strength of this woman was far stronger than the boundless future Buddha Lord. Even though she was not at the Heavenly Lord state just yet, in Lin Fan's opinion, this woman was probably a mere step away from attaining that coveted state. And just as Lin Fan was busy contemplating about these things, the void trembled furiously. In the blink of an eye, 2 icicles shot out such that there was no time for anyone to react at all. Shing! Those 2 icicles pierced right through Lin Fan's shoulders as those 2 gaping holes started oozing out fresh blood. On the surface of the skin, a layer of frost started to eat out at his body. So strong, Lin Fan knew that he was definitely no match for this woman here. Lighting up pills through thought, the flame burned up as he slapped out at both gaping holes on his shoulders, purging away that frost that was setting in. The life force within his body started to burst forth right away, healing up the wounds repeatedly. "Since you've lied, you can just go to hell then." The Frost Master God scoffed out coldly, and right after that, the frost from the void started to go wild and berserk. To think that the entire world would start freezing over immediately as the froze extended outward, blocking away Lin Fan's path of escape. Looking around the entire place, Lin Fan's heart clenched. It's over. The void around the entire world started freezing over with a krrrrrrk sound and converged down, forcing everything down onto this corner where he was standing. Lin Fan's brows furrowed out. He definitely had to think up of a plan. "I'll tell you the truth." At this critical juncture, he howled out loudly. With that, the surrounding frost stopped freezing over immediately. "Speak." Lin Fan looked at the Frost Master God. "I can tell you the truth, but you must let me out of this place." With a cold and frosty tone, the Frost Master God replied, "All right. Lin Fan shook his head. No, you've got to swear on it. With that, the brows of the Frost Master God knitted up, evidently displeased over this suggestion. If you can't even agree to that request, you can kill me right away then. But, you will never ever know who killed your sister. The Frost Master God looked at Lin Fan carefully. All right, I, the Frost Master God, shall swear to the Master of Chaos. As long as you tell the truth, I'm not going to kill you today, and will allow you to leave. If I renege on that promise, my godhead will be destroyed. Boom. Instantly, the entire world boomed with a deafening sound. Her oath had been made. It was only at that moment that Lin Fan knew that this was the Frost Master God. To think that her might would be this formidable. Speak now. The Frost Master God spoke up. Lin Fan looked at the Frost Master God calmly before saying out carefully. Actually, I was the one who killed her. Chapter 1128 How to Kill a Boss. Chapter 1128 How to Kill a Boss. The moment those words came out of Lin Fan's mouth, the entire world went eerily silent. His little heart was skipping up and down furiously. Honestly, it was really quite a stressful experience to speak the truth at times. This was especially the case when it was in front of someone like the Frost Master God, whose strength was so darned formidable. Given Lin Fan's current strength, he was truly not a match for her. Stunned for a moment, that supremely peerless face of the Frost Master God suddenly took on a stark change. What did you just say? The Frost Master God asked coldly, causing the entire place to feel as though there was an endless snowstorm ripping out all of existence. Compared to before, everything was even more threatening right now. In her mind, she could have never thought that this indigenous being before her would actually dare to spout out such words. Right now, Lin Fan expressed his exasperation. Honestly, he did not want to let this out. But, no matter what he said, the Frost Master God would not believe him at all. He had wanted to throw the blame onto the boundless future Buddha Lord. But well, guess what? She had managed to knock down that entire accusation with a single statement. The boundless future Buddha Lord does not have the guts. The moment he heard that, he was just rendered helpless. If the boundless future Buddha Lord had heard that personally, he would have definitely tried his best to prove that he had the guts even if it would mean the end of his life. After all, which man would want to say that they did not have the guts? Lin Fan heaved in a deep breath of air and looked at the Frost Master God straight in the eye. I said that the Water Master God was killed by me. Right now, he was feeling really nervous in his heart, wondering if the Frost Master God would kill him for spouting out such words. However, he didn't reckon that that might happen. After all, the Frost Master God had made an oath, and it was something that was already set in stone. If the Frost Master God dared to strike out to suppress him, her godhead would definitely be destroyed. The changes on the face of the Frost Master God were endless as the chilly aura in the air turned ever stronger by the moment. She then glared wide-eyed at Lin Fan. You. Lin Fan could feel an enormous killing intent being emanated from the body of the Frost Master God, as though she was bent on having him killed right here. But seemingly recalling something, the Frost Master God did not take action right away. Lin Fan asked her carefully, you swore earlier on. You'll keep that oath, right? The Frost Master God closed her eyes and heaved in deeply before jerking them wide open once more. I'll definitely abide by that oath and not kill you today for sure. You can leave. Lin Fan heaved a sigh of relief. Thereafter, not daring to linger for the slightest bit, he bolted off far into the distance. This Frost Master God was simply way too dangerous. However, his trip to the northern region this time around could not be considered as a huge loss either. He had managed to find out that there was such a Master God that existed within the ranks of the Moon Shadow mainland. If he did not know about this beforehand, there might have been a high chance that he could get himself FCKED over by these Master Gods the next time he went up against the Moon Shadow mainland just because he would have ended up underestimating them. But, at that moment, the thing that had Lin Fan feeling shocked was that the Frost Master God had actually started moving as well. She was just following him side by side. Lin Fan came to a stop. Frost Master God, could we somehow be headed in the exact same direction? Or how about this? Perhaps, you can leave first and I'll look for another way to go. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. The thing that he was the most afraid of was happening right now. However, he still maintained his composure and commented. The Frost Master God looked at Lin Fan. I swore that I would not kill you today and will let you off from this northern region as well. However, the moment the day is past, your death shall arrive. You can just walk your own way and I'll just follow you all the way. I'm not breaking the oath at all. FCK me. This was the thing that Lin Fan was the most afraid of. From the very beginning, he had thought that this was an extremely normal oath. But, it was only after the oath was made that he noticed something was really off with it. She was going to let him off today. But, given the strength of the Frost Master God, she could just follow him all the way, and once tomorrow arrived, she'd just FCK him over. There was nothing wrong with that really. Lin Fan replied exasperatedly, "How can you do this? This is just reneging on your words." Looking at Lin Fan with her icy expression, the Frost Master God merely scoffed out a few times coldly without say anything more. Given her strength, if Lin Fan wanted to ditch her in the dumps, that was something just not possible. At that moment, Lin Fan felt his entire heart breaking down. The Frost Master God was no fool or retard. Perhaps, she was already prepared to have him killed from the very beginning. Lin Fan started thinking things through. Things were really getting dangerous now. No matter what, he would have to ditch this Frost Master God away. Otherwise, the outcome would really be unimaginable. Frost Master God, do you have to be this shameless? You've promised to let me off, yet you're just following behind me all the way. Isn't that just lying blatantly? Lin Fan remarked once more, hoping that this could persuade the Frost Master God to leave. But once again, the Frost Master God said nothing more, choosing to just look at Lin Fan silently instead. Shaking his head, Lin Fan bolted into the void and started sprinting for his life. But, no matter how fast Lin Fan's speed was, he found that the Frost Master God just sticking to him the entire time. This was something that had him feeling totally stupefied. While the strength of the Frost Master God might be much stronger than hers, there was no need for her to mess with him like this, right? FCK this. I'm going for it. Power of Bigra. At that moment, the power of Bigra burst forth as a rich mist of Bigra enveloped the entire heaven and earth with it. Instantly, the Frost Master God frowned as she increased the intensity of her chilling aura. To Lin Fan's astonishment, he was discovering that his power of Bigra was actually showing signs of being frozen up, such that it could not approach the side of the Frost Master God at all. Holy FCK, to think that it would be useless. Did he really have to resort to using that soap of his? But, he did not know whether the soap had any use on the Frost Master God as well. The strength of this Frost Master God before him was way stronger than the boundless future Buddha Lord. If he were to have her killed, perhaps his strength would be able to leap up instantaneously as well. Without any hesitation, Lin Fan took out the soap before turning around to face the Frost Master God. "Are you going to leave or not? Do you know what this item in my hand is?" The Frost Master God said nothing, neither did she reveal a single trace of fear or anxiousness on her face. Evidently, Lin Fan was nothing to her. FC King Hell, to think that even after he took out the Lin brand soap, this Frost Master God would not even bat a single eyelid. She was clearly belittling him. Intolerable, absolutely intolerable. Lin Fan contemplated for a moment. If he could have this Frost Master God FCKED over to death by the soap, then everything would be worth it. In that case, the number of experience points gained would be extremely astronomical. After that, even if he were to meet the boundless future Buddha Lord, he wouldn't have to fear the other party at all. In fact, he might even be able to slay him at that time. At that moment, Lin Fan did not think twice. "Go on out, soap." Lin Fan tossed the soap out. Under normal circumstances, the Frost Master God would definitely pick up the soap, and with the slip of her hand, it would then drop down onto the ground. But all of a sudden, Lin Fan froze up. After he tossed out the soap, the Frost Master God did not even budge a single inch when a notification came forth from the system. Lin Brand's soap cannot be used on the female sex. This is a gay item. When Lin Fan heard the notification from the system, he was completely dumbfounded. Oh my god, what the flying shit, did it really have to be this FCKED up? If it did not have a single use on the Frost Master God, how in the world was he supposed to escape? The soap flew back into Lin Fan's hand as he gave off an awkward laugh before holding onto it. But at that moment, Lin Fan thought of an idea. His eyes sparkled with a bright glint. "That's right, I really have it now. Frost Master God, you swore that you will not kill me today. But, I did not swear that I will not kill you instead. If I were to strike out and you were to kill me, you'd be disobeying your oath then, right?" Lin Fan roared out in laughter before rubbing his hands together. He was ready to use his twisting heavens and earth so that he could turn this Frost Master God into a male. By then, the Frost Master God would definitely be in tremendous pain, and would lose every single bit of fighting strength. Even if she didn't lose her will to fight, he would still have his backup plan with the Lin brand soap. That was right. After coming up with this idea, Lin Fan sniggered out sinisterly. This was going to be a firm plan. Chapter 1129 How are you so shameless? Chapter 1129 How are you so shameless? Even though he had already said it out as such, the Frost Master God still seemed as though she was looking down at him with a gaze similar to how she would view an ant. She was filled with an endless disdain. Lin Fan did not say anything more as he furrowed his brows, bursting forth with all his powers. He then roared out before grabbing at the Frost Master God, exuding an immense power of yin and yang. Right now, Lin Fan's powers were already at the immortal king state, and twisting heaven and earth was already at its pinnacle. As he deployed that move, the might sent forth was absolutely supernatural and far from ordinary. Spreading his fingers open, every single finger of his was wrapped with the power of interchanging yin and yang. No matter who it was, as long as they were to be struck by this move, they would definitely find the yin and yang within their bodies swapping instantly and going chaotic from its very core. While the strength of the Frost Master God might be extraordinary, even someone like her would have her sex forcefully changed if she were struck by this move. Against this boundless power of yin and yang, the Frost Master God knitted her brows. She could sense that it was far from ordinary. To think that an ant-like indigenous being could actually possess strength of this level. However, when she thought about her oath, she could only bear with it for now. A layer of ice shrouded the Frost Master God entirely, blocking Lin Fan outside without any chance of penetrating through it all. Bam! When that single punch of his landed onto the ice shell, it was shut out without any chance of pushing even the slightest bit in. Lin Fan knew that the might of the Frost Master God was extraordinary, but he had not expected for it to be this formidable. However, there was no way he could just let this get him down. The power of yin and yang rippled tremendously and surged through the entire void. With that, the entire voids went into a state of chaos. However, the Frost Master God just retained her cold expression while looking at Lin Fan. After a long time later, she finally spoke up, "Just give it up. There's no way you can break through my defenses. HMPH, don't you get cocky now." Lin Fan hollered out before casting pills through thought, filling his palm with a ball of flames. These were the flames of pills through thought, something that could burn all existences. Using that, he slammed out onto the ice shell of the Frost Master God with it. Sizzle, sizzle, when that unyielding ice shell of hers actually showed signs of being melted, the Frost Master God could not help but frown and step back furiously. She narrowed her gaze and stared at Lin Fan, to think that this indigenous being could actually have such capabilities. Even though the Frost Master God was one of the Master Gods of the Moon Shadow mainland, she was someone with a broad knowledge of things. But even then, she had never ever encountered a flame as such. Just what in the world is that flame? To think that it would be even stronger than that of the Flame Master God. Lin Fan chuckled out, "You haven't seen this before, have you? I've got more things that are even more incredible than this. All I can say is that if you insist on staying by me, your eventual outcome would definitely be extremely tragic." The Frost Master God gave a single cold laugh as she stood her ground, choosing to merely increase the intensity of her frost from before. Lin Fan slammed down onto the ground with a single palm. Even though he was melting the ice, he discovered that it was just regenerating at a crazy speed that had him blocked out entirely. This Frost Master God was truly far from ordinary with an astounding might. Even though the flames from pills through thought were able to defrost the ice of the Frost Master God, the speed at which the ice was freezing back was simply way too fast, such that he could not break through at all. Seeing this, Lin Fan came to a stop. Right now, he could not help but be convinced that this Frost Master God was truly incredible. He could not help but acknowledge her might. "Are you going to leave or not?" Lin Fan looked at the Frost Master God. He realized that he truly had no way about this at all. Even when this Frost Master God was just standing there for him to attack as he'd like to, he had no way to deal with her. If word of this were to get out, wouldn't it bloody scare people to death? The Frost Master God looked at Lin Fan icily. "You killed the Water Master God. Do you really think that you can get out of this alive?" Lin Fan returned the gaze. Without saying anything more, he started stripping his clothes. He refused to believe that this Frost Master God could actually be this shameless. If a man such as himself were to strip right before her and she could just continue to stand by and watch, he would really just have to be convinced of her tenacity. Looking at Lin Fan, the Frost Master God broke out into asking, "What are you trying to do?" Lin Fan peered at the Frost Master God without stopping his hands. "It's too hot. I'm going to strip myself nude. If it doesn't bother you, then you can continue watching by all means." In Lin Fan's mind, he presumed that the Frost Master God would definitely shut her eyes in embarrassment while saying out in a huff, "You're so naughty. How can you be this shameless? Well, at least that was what would happen back in his past life. Since the opportunity presented itself today, he could give it a try as well and strip entirely clean. Based on his plan, this chick would definitely be caught at a huge loss for words. By then, he would just capitalize on the opportunity and FCK her over. That was the plan, all right. But at that moment, the words of the Frost Master God had Lin Fan flabbergasted entirely and even stopping his movements. This mother CKER was way too shameless, wasn't she? As a woman, how could she be even lewder than a man? Nopes, I don't mind. You can go ahead and strip. Honestly, I've never really seen the body of an indigenous being just yet. If you can satisfy me, I can allow you to become an ice sculpture tomorrow. Lin Fan heaved out, Frost Master God, just what in the world do you want? Well, of course, other than killing me, if you have any other requests, you can just lay them out. As long as I can fulfill them, I'll definitely have you pleased. Looking at Lin Fan, the Frost Master God just chuckled out coldly, I only want you dead. Then that's a no deal. Lin Fan waved it off with his hand. This was truly a grave situation. There was no way he could bring this Frost Master God over to the Heaven and Earth sect. If he were to head there, those normal disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect would definitely not be able to defend against this monstrous being here. And this was especially the case for these ice seals of hers that extended out for thousands of miles, seeming extremely horrifying. Anyone with a low cultivation state would be turned into ice sculptures right away by these ice seals. Even Zhang Yangtian and the others should not be able to do anything much against this Frost Master God. How could there be a powerful being as such from the Moon Shadow mainland? This just didn't make any sense at all. And with that, time was slipping by gradually. Lin Fan had been contemplating hard about what he should do. Using her ice shell to protect herself, this Frost Master God was absolutely impenetrable. Even his attacks had no impact on her at all. Frost Master God, don't you get overboard with your bullying now. Lin Fan roared out. Frost Master God, even if I'm bullying you, what can you do about that? Mother Fasterisk CKER, this woman. Right now, Lin Fan was truly admitting defeat. Good, very good, you were the one who forced me to do this. At that moment, Lin Fan's entire body jerked out furiously. While maintaining a fixed distance from the Frost Master God, his eyes were shining with an endless glint. Since that's how things are going to be, come on then. Lin Fan lowered his head. Back before he had arrived in the Xuanwang world, Lin Fan had learned a kung fu skill that was the most tyrannical out of everything in the world. After all these years, he had never once used it because he looked down on it. But now that he was pushed to this extent by the Frost Master God, he could not be bothered to think about it too much anymore. Frost Master God, you were the one who asked for this yourself. Lin Fan roared out, his eyes sparkling brightly. The Frost Master God's gaze at Lin Fan was cold and icy, as though she was waiting for this monkey to perform its acrobatics. Arg h. At that moment, a long howl arose. The place where Lin Fan stood exploded as a boundless power erupted forth from beneath his feet. Raising his speed to its maximum, he used his body as a sharp object and rammed straight at the ice shell of the Frost Master God. Bam! There wasn't a single crack on the ice shell of the Frost Master God. What are you doing? The Frost Master God laughed out coldly. But all of a sudden, she realized that the body of this indigenous being before her was actually exploding out, with fresh blood bursting from every single place. Lin Fan wobbled out wildly as a series of long, deep cuts tore across his body. His scream howled out through the entire heaven and earth. Arg, it hurts. It hurts so badly, I'm going to die. The Frost Master God was stunned. Just what in the world was going on here? Right now, Lin Fan was rolling about in the void as his body began to break down repeatedly. How dare you use your ice shell to ram at me? Right now, I'm gravely injured all because of you. I'm going to die. I'm really going to die. Lin Fan yelled out tragically while his eyes shone with a vicious glint. This was a trial attempt. He refused to believe that it would not work. Based on the oath of the Frost Master God, she could not kill him today. But, if he were to die because of this ice shell, that would be considered as a kill by the Frost Master God as well. Lin Fan's aura was dipping lower as though he was about to dissipate at any moment now. The Frost Master God was completely stumped. She had not expected that this indigenous being could actually be this bloody shameless. Chapter 1130 Chop you to death, B*TCH. Chapter 1130. Chop you to death, B*TCH. When it came to shamelessness, there was no one who could beat Lin Fan. He truly refused to believe that he wouldn't be able to take a smelly B***tch in hand today. Instantly, he gave himself a great taste of his twisting heaven and earth. What was the use of being a man anymore? He might as well just go and turn into a tranny. Arg, that hurts so badly, I'm going to die, Lin Fan wailed out tragically, as though he could barely hang on any longer. Lin Fan had sealed his mythical parasol tree and some other moves of his, such that even the slightest drop of life force could not leak out at all. Looking at Lin Fan, the Frost Master God knitted her brows. Raising her head up into the void, she could sense a mysterious will that was gathering over in the heavens. An oath was an oath. Even though she had sworn it to the Master of Chaos, the oath did not differentiate between either of them. If the oath were reneged, she would definitely suffer the consequences. Following the weakening of Lin Fan's aura, the sense of danger felt by the Frost Master God was getting stronger by the moment. Arg, I'm going to die, Lin Fan yelled out as he extended his tongue and was prepared to wait for the arrival of death. No. Suddenly, the Frost Master God could sense this extremely tyrannical yet inexplicable will that was bolting down from the heavens, driving itself straight into her God core. Creak. A single crack appeared on her God core while the Frost Master God spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, her face turning frightfully pale. Evidently, she had not expected that this indigenous being would actually resort to such a method. At the same time, she could not have imagined that such a method could actually implicate her as well. What had this got to do with her? She didn't even budge a single inch, and he himself was the one who had come ramming over. And yet, the oath was making her accountable for it. No. Creak. Lin Fan's aura was getting feebler and weaker, causing more cracks to appear on the God core of the Frost Master God. An existence such as the Frost Master God would be completely doomed if her God core were to be shattered. With that, her self-healing capabilities would be less than 10% of her initial self. Wanting to recover from an injury as such would require an extremely long time. Indigenous being, you are way too despicable. The Frost Master God screamed out at Lin Fan at the top of her lungs as the fiery flames of rage in her heart burned ever more ferociously. She could not wish for anything more than to slay this indigenous being right now. What am I being despicable about? You are clearly the one that's killing me right now. I'm being rammed to death by that ice shell of yours. Lin Fan hollered out. He had already realized that there was something off with the aura of the Frost Master God. The God core within her body should most probably be breaking down at this moment then. Creak, creak. Those shattering sounds were ever so ear-piercing, yet it was ever so pleasurable in the mind of Lin Fan. A shriek rang out as the Frost Master God was prepared to make her escape. At the same time, she laid down her threats. Indigenous being, I'll definitely return to kill you. This wasn't a place where she should continue lingering in. She knew that this indigenous being was just trying to FCK her over. While there was absolutely no way that the indigenous being was going to die, the cracks appearing on her God core right now had a monumental impact on her. Just for precaution, she definitely had to get out of this place as soon as possible. Right now, the God core was already damaged, and she had to spend time to repair it properly. Lin Fan looked at the Frost Master God and felt flustered for a moment. Unlocking his mythical parasol tree, life force started to gush back into his body furiously as he brandished his eternal axe before chopping over at the Frost Master God. Smelly B***tch. You had better stand there for yours truly. Yours truly is going to chop you to death. The initially half-dead Lin Fan suddenly sprung to life as he rushed after the Frost Master God. With that, the tides of battle had taken on a huge turn. Lin Fan, Han Juntian tore out of the void, not knowing what was going on at this moment. When Lin Fan caught sight of Han Juntian, he shouted out immediately, Grand Master, hurry and follow me to have that B***tch chopped down. We mustn't let her escape. The Lin Fan who was wielding his eternal axe was filled with imposingness. That ferocious stance he had right now was absolutely earth-shaking. When the Frost Master God looked at Lin Fan, her eyes shone with an unbridled rage. Indigenous being, I'll be back. Creak. Instantly, the void shattered just like a mirror, blocking Lin Fan in his path. And with that, the Frost Master God vanished from the void instantaneously. Lin Fan heaved out a sigh of regret. To think that the Frost Master God would have really given him the slip. What a Mother Sea King Dog's tea event everything turned out to be. The fact that he failed to capitalize on such an amazing opportunity was absolutely heartbreaking. Han Juntian rushed forward. What's going on? That was a Master God of the Moon Shadow mainland, the same one that had landed the entire northern region in this state. She is extremely strong, but I had managed to find a way to FCK her over despite the overwhelming odds. To think that she would have managed to escape despite those wounds. If I could have had her slain, the losses sustained by the Moon Shadow mainland would have been absolutely immense. Lin Fan explained. Han Juntian froze up slightly, evidently filled in disbelief. To think that a single master god could have had such capabilities. However, he definitely believed in Lin Fan's words firmly. At that moment, the frosty skies started to clear up as the entire snowy grounds returned to their previous state. Suddenly, Lin Fan's mind thought about the living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland that had set up base in this northern region, and his interest was piqued immensely. Grand Master, even though that Master God has managed to escape, all those other living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland must not have had the time to react to this just yet. Let us hurry and go annihilate them. This will deal quite a huge blow to the Moon Shadow mainland as well. Han Juntian nodded his head in agreement. The reason why he had followed Lin Fan over here was naturally because he was afraid of anything happening to this lad. As for the frost around this area, he had only managed to sense it after arriving here. It was extremely formidable indeed. Despite being an immortal king, he could actually feel the powers within his body showing signs of freezing over completely. That was something absolutely incredulous in his eyes. Being someone who could manipulate the frost to such a level, it was evident that the other party was far from a simple being. Lin Fan flew over to the distance, and aha! He could indeed catch sight of those living beings struggling to make their escape right now. All of them were scared silly at this moment, not knowing why the territory of their Frost Master God had turned out into such a state. Ha ha ha! Lin Fan roared out in laughter as his voice reverberated through the entire world. When the living beings caught sight of that figure up in the void, they were even more astounded. It's an indigenous being of the endless mainland. Let us hurry and escape. Looking down at the living beings below, Han Juntian's eyes were filled with a disturbed expression. There are truly way too many of these living beings here. They are even more than an entire sect in itself. Lin Fan nodded his head. Grand Master, I was initially thinking about having them killed. But, by the looks of things now, if we can turn them over and make use of them, that could probably reduce the losses that are taken on by the sects of the endless mainland as well. Han Juntian shook his head. How could they possibly allow themselves to be made use of by us? Lin Fan chuckled out, well, we don't know that for sure. Check this out. At that moment, Lin Fan heaved in a deep breath as his aura took on a stark change, causing an infinitely bright Buddhist light to shine out from his back. Those Buddhist lights were just like banners that extended out into the void. Shrouding the entire world, it shone down across the heaven and earth. The great Buddha's light of purification was something that was so darned heaven-revolting, and could purify the living beings of the entire world. This was especially the case for these living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland who were so puny and weak. How could they possibly defend against this? As he muttered out his Buddhist sutras, Buddhas appeared in the void one after another. Dense and numerous, they started enveloping up those living beings within their ranks as a bright, golden Buddhist light shone down over the entire world. After the living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland were touched by that Buddhist light, their bodies turned stiff as though they had been frozen. Lay down your sins and you shall turn into a Buddha on the spot. As he closed his palms together, a boundless Buddha light exuded out from within them and caged all of those living beings up within it. Standing by the side and witnessing everything, Han Juntian was totally petrified. How in the world could such a mystic skill exist in the universe? Even the good and evil Buddha sect might not be in possession of something like this, right? Ever since Lin Fan had come forth from the ancient saint world, he was starting to realize that the mystic skills that he had obtained from either the ancient saint world itself or the Xuanwang world were not that weak at all. In fact, they might not even lose out to the mystic skills of the endless mainland, some of them were probably even stronger. Chapter 1131 Starting on the Path of Massacring. Chapter 1131 Starting on the Path of Massacring. What a tyrannical immortal art! Han Juntian gasped out. This was an immortal art that was far from ordinary. Purifying all of those living beings from the Moon Shadow mainland in one go was just absolutely inconceivable before this point. He could sense an extremely strong power of the Buddha clan emanating out of this immortal art. Compared to the good and evil Buddha sect, it was just equally formidable, if not even more mystifying. Looking at the living beings that were purified down below, Lin Fan let out a grin. Grand Master, now that these living beings have been purified, we'll let the Moon Shadow mainland kill amongst themselves. That would serve to help preserve the resources of our endless mainland. Indeed, Han Juntian nodded his head, feeling that everything Lin Fan had just said truly made sense. Lin Fan looked at the northern region. By now, all of the sects in the northern region have withdrawn. As for those that didn't manage to leave, they have all been turned into ice sculptures. I wonder if those elders, the Grand Master, and the old masters of the Emperor Dao sect who had been turned into ice sculptures could be reverted to their states before. Seeing the might of this master god of the Moon Shadow mainland, Han Juntian was unnerved right now. For someone to be able to freeze up powerful beings of a mortal king state, how strong did they have to be? This wasn't something that any ordinary master god would be able to do. However, now that that master god had been injured by Lin Fan, it might not be too soon before she could recover. The two of them arrived at the skies above the Emperor Dao sect. The Grand Master and those old masters who had been frozen into ice sculptures were lying on the ground motionlessly. Even though the ice had already melted off, there was no way of telling if they were dead or alive. Han Juntian's brows furrowed. Are they dead? No. Lin Fan shook his head. As he pointed out his finger, a stream of life force gushed out of the heavens and entered their bodies. Gradually, the bodies of the Grand Master and Old Masters of the Emperor Dao sect started changing slowly, until it was followed by sounds of breathing eventually. The Grand Master of the Emperor Dao sect was the first to bolt up as he sucked in a huge breath of air. I'll fight you to death. But when he finally realized what was going on around him, he was somewhat stumped. What's going on here? Brother Ning Dao. Han Juntian landed down from the void and heaved out a huge breath of relief. The fact that the Grand Master and the Old Masters of the Emperor Dao sect were not dead was the best possible outcome they could possibly wish for. Otherwise, this would have been a tremendous loss for the Endless Mainland. What sort of existences were immortal kings? Even if they could not defeat the strongest master gods out there, they could still ensure the safety of a part of the world at the very least. Brother Han, the Grand Master of the Emperor Dao sect looked over at Han Juntian as his face lit up. But, it was filled with bewilderment soon after. What's going on over here? Where has that witch gone to? Lin Fan spoke up. Grand Master Ning, that master god has left with injuries. Ning Dao looked closely at Lin Fan. It took him a while before his face changed and he gasped out, Lin Fan. Lin Fan sniggered out. Seemed like he was still rather famous after all, such that even some of the major sects knew about his name. He then nodded his head back to greet Ning Dao. Ning Dao's gaze surveyed his surroundings as it was gradually filled with an enraged look. He then asked, what about my disciples? Lin Fan shook his head. The strength of that Frost Master God was way too strong. Given the strength of those disciples, there was no way they could have defended against her powers. Their life forces had long dissipated out from within their frozen ice forms. It is because your powers are stronger that you were still able to hold out. But, if things were to delay further, I'm afraid you guys would have probably ended up the same way as well. The hearts of the Grand Master and those old masters of the Emperor Dao sect were filled with wrath. To think that as one of the 9 sects, they would be destroyed by a single master god of the Moon Shadow mainland. Even though they themselves were still alive right now, but those disciples of theirs. Highs. Han Juntian continued, Brother Ning Dao, fellow old masters, this is a critical period for the Endless Mainland right now. We must no longer operate like a plate of scattered sand. I feel that we should gather and stand against the Moon Shadow mainland together. Ning Dao nodded his head. All right, now that those darned master gods of the Moon Shadow mainland have caused my Emperor Dao sect to be destroyed, if I don't seek revenge for those disciples of mine, how am I befitting of being their Grand Master? Han Juntian nodded his head as well. Right now, we already have several major sects that are gathering one after another so that we can discuss about the big matters on hand. Take this northern region for example. There are so many sects that are either dead or escaping with their lives. If we are to continue letting the Moon Shadow mainland eat us up as such, it will be too late by the time we come to realize what's happening. At this point, Lin Fan felt a tremendous amount of pressure setting in. If he had not met the Frost Master God, he would not have felt this way. But now that he had, he was truly feeling the stress. The strength of that Frost Master God was truly far from ordinary. In front of her, he found even himself completely useless and incapable of fighting back at all. If there were other master gods of that level within the ranks of the Moon Shadow mainland, what was he to do? Strength. Absolute strength. That was the only thought running through Lin Fan's mind at this moment. He wanted to raise his strength as quickly as possible. Once it was to reach a certain state, he would be able to defend against all troubles that they were to face. Lin Fan commented, let us take a short separation from this point first. After this matter, I'm in dire need of finding a way to increase my own strength. Otherwise, if we were to meet with another powerful being that's similar to that Frost Master God, I'm afraid it's going to be extremely difficult to fend against them. Han Juntian wanted to say something, but when he thought about how Lin Fan had plans of his own, he could only nod his head in agreement. Given the current circumstances, there was no time available for them to hesitate anymore. If anyone were to hesitate, the only outcome awaiting them was death. All right, but always remember that your safety must come first, Han Juntian warned. Lin Fan nodded his head. Without waiting any longer, he dove right into the void. Right now, he was going to look for those master gods. He definitely had to think up of some way to have those master gods killed. If he wanted to seek out extremely strong master gods such as the War Master God and such, he truly had no way about it. But he would just kill the likes of the Radiant Master God and the Water Master God he could actually come across without feeling even the slightest bit of pressure. At this moment in a world of frost, the void trembled slightly as a figure suddenly appeared suddenly. The face of the Frost Master God was frightfully pale right now, with fresh blood dripping from the sides of her lips. Her body was quivering slightly as she wobbled out. She had not expected things to turn out as such. That indigenous being was simply way too crafty. Damned indigenous being, the Frost Master God cursed out in her heart before spreading her arms wide open, causing a surge of frosty winds to gust over from all directions. In this world of frost were many ice sculptures fixed on their spots. But, at that moment, those ice sculptures were actually showing signs of cracking as their essence, spirit, and vitality gushed out in streams toward the Frost Master God. This was her method of healing up her own body. The reason why the Frost Master God had kept this many ice sculptures was just so that she could take in all the energy that was preserved behind by these ice sculptures at critical moments as such. Closing her eyes gently, the Frost Master God was enveloped by ice all over her entire body. N-O-V-E-L-P-I-N-C-O-M. Under this healing energy, that cracked god core started to regenerate. However, the speed of it was simply way too slow. There was no way of telling when this would actually heal up completely. After parting ways with Han Juntian and the others, Lin Fan's priority right now was to look for those master gods of the Moon Shadow mainland. By now, the living beings of the entire Moon Shadow mainland had already occupied a good half of the Endless Mainland's territories. Therefore, it was only by going to those places that Lin Fan had the greatest chance of seeking out master gods of the Moon Shadow mainland. Floating up in the void, Lin Fan felt that it was going to be rather odd going around with this face of his. No matter where he went, he would definitely be recognized by a single look. But thankfully, he had a mask which could alter one's appearance as they willed. Even auras and whatnot could be concealed. Spinning a circle, Lin Fan changed his entire appearance altogether. That's right, with the way he looked right now, there was probably no one who could recognize him anymore. Chapter 1132 Sneaking into Enemy Ranks. Chapter 1132 Sneaking into Enemy Ranks. By now, Lin Fan had already arrived at the area that was occupied by the living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland. Choosing not to fly through the void, he decided to walk instead. At the same time, he crafted out a gigantic sword so that he could disguise himself as one of the warriors from the Moon Shadow mainland. Although Lin Fan did not know the cultivation methods and skills of these living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland, the way he looked right now would enable him to blend right into the living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland without anyone discovering him. Lin Fan sighed out. For the sake of him turning stronger, he could have been considered to have given it his all. If he were to not bump into any master gods of the Moon Shadow mainland, that would definitely be an immense loss for him. Who's there? At that moment, a group of living beings from the Moon Shadow mainland walked over. Turning around, Lin Fan caught sight of his targets, 3 wizards and 2 warriors. Their strength wasn't strong at all, they were just the cannon fodder of the Moon Shadow mainland. Lin Fan nodded his head, which sufficed as his greeting in return. Since these people weren't even strong, he couldn't be bothered to exchange any proper greetings with them at all. One of the warriors had a well-built body with bulging muscles. He then patted out on Lin Fan's shoulder. "My name is Oph. What about you?" Lin Fan chuckled out, "Nicholas. That's such a weird name." Oph remarked suspiciously. Unbothered about it thereafter, he continued, "Seems like you're a warrior. Are you headed to the side of the Hunting Master God to take on missions for killing the indigenous beings of the Endless Mainland?" Lin Fan's brows furrowed, his heart filled with bewilderment. But he didn't think too much about it as he nodded his head. "Yes. Hunting Master God." At that moment, Lin Fan was interested in checking this guy out for himself. To think that the Endless Mainland would actually turn into a place for this Hunting Master God to hand out missions. And the reason why the living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland were arriving at the Endless Mainland continuously should have a big connection with what this Hunting Master God was doing. Oph then smiled out. "Let's head there together then. Who knows, we might even be able to partner up after receiving the missions." Since Lin Fan was unfamiliar with this entire place, it would be better for someone to bring him around as well. Alright, together it is then. Lin Fan spoke up. Along the way, Lin Fan asked a number of questions sneakily, and at the same time, he found out about how the Moon Shadow mainland was completing their invasion. With the Hunting Master God handing down missions, it attracted tons of people who had no religion. These were people who did not bear faith or swore allegiance to the Master Gods. But at this moment, there was a Master God that was handing out rewards for those who completed his missions. In the face of such handsome rewards, it naturally attracted quite a number of people to head over. And not only that, there were many large-scale missions that would take in a large number of people so that they could all fight together and complete the missions together. After a long time, Lin Fan followed Oph and the others to arrive at a place that looked like some sort of a sacrificial altar. This was a place that was long crowded by many living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland, who were gathered here in wait for receiving missions. Sweeping through the entire place with a single glance, Lin Fan could tell that there was a light screen above the sacrificial altar with countless missions imprinted onto it. Some of those missions were really simple, merely asking for them to kill countless disciples of the Endless Mainland. At the same time, there were some missions concerning the Heaven and Earth sect. The ones that required someone to destroy the Heaven and Earth sect were the highest graded missions, with exceptionally handsome rewards. Following close behind were missions related to the different other sects. For the living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland, this was their fastest method of raising their strength. Every single high difficulty mission wasn't limited to a single person, anybody could come and take it on. For example, for a mission that entailed them to take down a small sect, there were countless people who had taken on something like that and headed out together. Because of that, the parties formed were many powerhouses in themselves that those small sects could not deal with at all. Naturally, Lin Fan knew that the Moon Shadow mainland and the Endless mainland were the same. There are both good and bad people mixed in there. However, given the current circumstances, there was really no room for him to think that much about things. Lin Fan had already decided that he was just going to have all of these invaders purified. As to how things would eventually turn out, that would have to depend on their own fates and doings. At that moment, Lin Fan raised his head and looked toward the sacrificial altar. He could sense the aura of the Hunting Master God emanating out of there. Only, he could tell that the latter wasn't around himself. Seemed like he would have to come up with another way if he wanted to seek out the Hunting Master God. November LBJNN. And right then, Oph spoke up. Today, the Hunting Master God is going to appear himself and start handing out new missions once more. Coming to a stop, Lin Fan's heart leapt with joy. You're saying that the Hunting Master God is going to come? Oph nodded his head. That's right. Each time the missions handed down by the Hunting Master God are completely gone, he would come forth and publish the latest missions. Now that the missions here are mostly coming to an end, the Hunting Master God will naturally appear with more missions to be handed out. Lin Fan was immediately ecstatic on hearing this. To think that he would actually have obtained this opportunity. If the Hunting Master God were to appear, he might probably have a chance to get that guy killed. Although, the main thing was still to check out just how strong the other party was first. Time passed by the seconds and minutes. Just as Lin Fan was getting a little impatient from waiting, the void trembled slightly as a beam of godlight shone down from the heavens. Seeing this, the surrounding crowd started clamoring out. The Hunting Master God has appeared. Lin Fan raised his head over and was immediately enveloped by that godlight of the Hunting Master God. Descending from the void, it floated out gently toward the sacrificial altar. The strength of this Hunting Master God was nowhere as strong as the boundless future Buddha Lord. But, he was still rather decent all the same. My people, all of you have done well to complete the missions. Your God here is extremely heartened to know that. Right now, your God is going to start handing down even more missions, that will bring for you guys even more handsome rewards. The Hunting Master God spoke up. All of these living beings were not the followers of the Hunting Master God. Therefore, when they caught sight of him, there was only a fearful type of respect, and not reverence and idolization. Looking down at these living beings before him, the Hunting Master God naturally had plans of his own in his heart. He then pointed out with his finger, causing countless latest missions to appear out on the light screen. When the living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland caught sight of those missions, all of them started exclaiming out, the rewards for those missions were simply way too incredible. At that moment, the Hunting Master God spoke up. My people, are you guys willing to turn into the followers of your God here? If you guys are the followers of your God, you shall receive the blessings of your God when you go through with the missions. That will help you complete the missions with greater ease. Every single Master God required followers. Compared to the rest of the master gods, the hunting master god had the least number of followers out there. Amongst all of them, the one with the most followers was the war master god. That was because war was something that broke out really often in the Moon Shadow mainland. Every single living being then thirsted for power, and lusted to stand forth as the sole victor of wars. Even though the hunting master god had spoken at that moment, many of those living beings started hesitating. They knew that if they were to worship and pray to a master god, their bodies would no longer belong to themselves, and would be connected together with the master god. If the master god wanted one to live, one would live, if he wanted one to die, one would die. The hunting master god continued, "My people, if any of you wish to become the people of your god, walk onto the sacrificial altar and receive the mighty grace of your god." At that moment, some people started walking toward that altar one after another. Lin Fan did not hesitate as well. Right now, he wanted to kill the hunting master god. How could he do that without getting close to that guy? Because of that, the hunting master god let out a bright smile. How could he not be happy upon knowing that he would have a rise in his number of followers? That was a fact that naturally brought a smile to his face. But suddenly, a voice broke out of the void. "Hunting master god, to think that you would have started recruiting for followers once again." Lin Fan narrowed his gaze over and saw a golden brown shade of color appearing in the distance. From there, a single figure descended upon the heaven and earth. All of the living beings down below exclaimed out, "Great Earth Master God." Lin Fan's heart skipped a beat. What? There was another Master God that had arrived. Chapter 1133 Hurry and Take It. Chapter 1133. Hurry and Take It. The arrival of the Great Earth Master God brought forth exclamations from countless people as many living beings prostrated down onto the ground and kowtowed in respect. In the Moon Shadow mainland, the Great Earth Master God enjoyed an extremely high status, with many living beings placing their faith in him. Therefore, he was naturally more popular than the Hunting Master God. At this moment, the difference between Master God to Master God was perfectly exemplified. The Great Earth Master God was in no lack of followers, while the Hunting Master God lacked them greatly. All the Master Gods that were coming forth to invade the Endless Mainland this time around were looking to gain more benefits for themselves. Some of them wanted to be able to step foot into that coveted unparalleled and unrivaled creation state, while others wanted to just expand their number of followers. This Hunting Master God, for example, wasn't all that popular back in the Moon Shadow mainland, and the people did not wish to place their faith in someone like him. Therefore, now that this chance had presented itself, he naturally had to try his best to work hard at gaining followers. For the Master Gods, the more followers they had, the greater the amount of faith they could collect. With that, their strength would be able to be raised greatly. The Hunting Master God looked at the Great Earth Master God and furrowed his brows. What do you mean by that? The body of the Great Earth Master God was well built and seemed as though it was draped with a layer of golden brown outer shirt. He gave off a rich, intense aura of being indestructible as he chuckled out, "Hunting Master God, don't be mistaken now. I'm merely here to notify you that the War of the Master Gods is about to begin. It's about time for the Endless Mainland to be annihilated." So quickly, the Hunting Master God was slightly taken aback, feeling that everything had happened way too quickly. Remembering that he still had something to do, he continued, "Now that you're done telling me what you have to, I suppose it's time for you to leave then. After all, I'm in the midst of transmitting my powers over to my new followers." Chuckling out, the Great Earth Master God looked at the people down below, not really bothered with the proceedings. "Sure, continue with your recruitment of followers. I'll just stay here and take a look." The strength of the Hunting Master God was nowhere as strong as the Great Earth Master God, and therefore, his ranking amongst the Master Gods wasn't all that high either. But, the good thing was that there were no wars between the Master Gods in the Moon Shadow mainland. Even if there were wars, those would only be wars between the followers. As for the Master Gods, they would simply observe with amusement like watching a movie. From time to time, they would step in and offer some of their followers miracles. That was an act to bring forth a point, God is always with you. Right now, Lin Fan was thinking about his plans as well. He wanted to have both of these Master Gods killed. But, given the way things were right now, if he were to rush up with brute force, that might bring forth a series of unnecessary troubles. That was because he did not dare to guarantee that he could instacle this Great Earth Master God. If he were to delay things and give the other Master Gods a chance to sense that something was wrong over here, he would be FCKED if he ended up being surrounded by them. After pondering for a bit, Lin Fan finally thought up some ideas. The Hunting Master God spoke up at this moment, those who wish to be the followers of your Master God, come on forth. Let your Master God cleanse the impurities from your bodies. Some of the living beings that were in dire need of turning stronger immediately started walking toward the sacrificial altar. When the living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland took on the faith of a single Master God, it would allow them to communicate with the powers of that Master God. Not only that, if they were lucky, they might even be able to receive the blessings of the Master God at times. Taking wizards, for example, the only way for them to cast out even stronger magical spells was by following Master Gods. In the legends, forbidden curses were said to be a part of the Master God's powers. If there were wizards that did not have a faith, they would never be able to cast any single forbidden curses in their entire lives. Therefore, the end path of a wizard was always to seek out the faith of a Master God. That was also the reason why Master Gods such as the Radiant Master God, Flame Master God, etc. would never be lacking in followers. That was because their powers had already determined that they would gain quite a number of followers. At this moment, people arrived before the face of the Hunting Master God one after another while kneeling down on a single knee, preparing to receive his blessings. The reason why the Hunting Master God was here handing down missions for the living beings to complete was for them to slowly understand through receiving the rewards that they would be able to gain even greater benefits if they were to place their faith in him. And, the reason why some of the living beings out there did not have any faith nowadays was clearly because they had yet to experience the benefits of gaining one. Therefore, this time around, the Hunting Master God was prepared to impart even stronger powers down to his followers. This would help those followers who were not placing their faith in him to know just how good things would be under his faith. At that moment, the Hunting Master God realized that there was a single living being that was not heading forth. He then pointed over at Lin Fan while asking, "Since you're here at the sacrificial altar, why do you choose not to come over?" Right now, the first one Lin Fan wanted to make a move and kill was the Great Earth Master God. Since the Great Earth Master God was quite a lot stronger than the Hunting Master God, if Lin Fan could have him killed, the experience points gained would definitely be much more than what the Hunting Master God could offer. If he were to just kill the Hunting Master God first and allow the Great Earth Master God a chance to make his escape, his losses would be extremely heavy. Therefore, after thinking back and forth, Lin Fan decided that it was still for the best for him to have the Great Earth Master God killed first. Lin Fan replied calmly, "Respected Hunting Master God, when I caught sight of the Great Earth Master God, I was reminded of my father. He was a follower of the Great Earth Master God. Before his death, he had told me to follow him and give up my entire life for the Great Earth Master God. However, the one I wanted to place my faith in right now is you, Hunting Master God. But, when the Great Earth Master God appeared right before my face, that had me feeling extremely uneasy in my heart. To go against the last wishes of my father is something that is causing my heart to be filled with guilt." The Hunting Master God had initially thought that this fellow was going to go over to the side of the Great Earth Master God. But when he heard the later part, his face broke out into a smile. "Oh, my people, I shall pardon you in place of your father. Hunting Master God, his father was my follower. If anyone should pardon him, it should be me," the Great Earth Master God said. Lin Fan continued, "Great Earth Master God, in order to repent for my sins toward you, I'm intending to give you a mysterious treasure that I had obtained from the Endless Mainland. I hope that that will be enough for me to seek your forgiveness." When the Great Earth Master God heard that, his interest was piqued. "Oh, what sort of a treasure is that?" On the other hand, the brows of the Hunting Master God furrowed with some displeasure. This fellow really did not know what was good for him. If it were a treasure, it should be presented to your Master God, shouldn't it? How could he give it over to the Great Earth Master God? But, given the current circumstances, since that fella had already said it out, what else could he say about that? He could only watch silently. If it were just any normal treasure, he could just forget about it. That was what the Hunting Master God felt. He didn't think that it would be anything spectacular. After all, the strength of this commoner should be rather weak. At that moment, Lin Fan took out the Heaven and Earth Smelt. "Great Earth Master God, this is the treasure that I had obtained from this endless mainland. It can refine every single living being between the heaven and earth. However, after thinking about it, I decided that only a treasure is such as befitting to seek the pardon of the Great Earth Master God." Lin Fan propped up the Heaven and Earth Smelt with both hands up high. At the same time, the smelt gave off an extremely mystifying aura, causing the expression of the Great Earth Master God to change slightly. He could tell that this thing he held in the hands of this fellow was something good. When the great Earth Master God sensed out the mysterious power that was exuding forth from it, his eyes shone with an unusual glint before he eventually broke out into a smile. I can sense your sincerity. When the hunting Master God caught sight of this, his eyelids twitched. He could bloody tell that this was definitely some incredible item through and through. Bloody mother CKER. Was this common or some FC King brain-dead retard or something? To think that he would give such a wonderful item over to the great Earth Master God instead of himself. This. Lin Fan was secretly smirking inside him. Hurry up and come over to take it. Chapter 1134 Framed. Chapter 1134, Framed. The great Earth Master God did not think too much about it because he had already seen through the strength of this person before him from the very beginning. Weak. Extremely, extremely weak. However, the aura emanating forth from the treasure was extremely strong on the other hand. There was an exceptionally mystifying feeling about it. Raising both of his arms up high, Lin Fan declared, Great Earth Master God, I seek for your pardon. The face of the Great Earth Master God was filled with a bright smile as he came before Lin Fan's face. He then placed his hand onto the heaven and earth smelt. Don't worry, your God here pardons you. Lin Fan smiled out as well as he lowered his hands slowly. Holding on to the treasure, the Great Earth Master God was filled with excitement in his heart. He could sense the power that was contained within it. Tremendous. That was incredibly tremendous. The hunting Master God could only stare at the Great Earth Master God with envy, jealousy, and hatred. His heart was filled with indignance. Why did all the benefits have to go over to the hands of the Great Earth Master God? He could even sniff out the smell of that treasure from this distance. That was the smell of power. It was intoxicating. With that, the Great Earth Master God remarked with a face of satisfaction, not bad indeed, my Peo, PLE. Bam! Instantly, the entire heaven and earth fell silent. Lin Fan replied indifferently, yep, it truly is not bad indeed. The face of the Great Earth Master God, which was initially filled with satisfaction, changed all of a sudden, flushing blood red like that of a pig's liver entirely. He then switched between shades of green and white at this moment. Slowly, his lips spread apart as he heaved in a huge breath of cold air. He could feel a sense of pain surging right into the depths of his heart. This, too, was a mystifying sensation. A ball-crunching sensation found its way entering the very bottom of his heart. This was a feeling that he had never experienced before in his life. He could only feel as though there was something that was crushed entirely into smithereens between this heaven and earth here. Looking at everything before him, the hunting Master God was bewildered. What was the meaning of this? Could this be the latest sort of worship position or something? Or perhaps, was this the way that the Great Earth Master God liked his followers to behave? Arg hhhhhhhhhhhhhh. An extremely sharp wail shot all the way up into the heavens as the legs of the Great Earth Master God broke out into a wobble and collapsed over. He then glared at Lin Fan with an extremely complex expression. Why you? Lin Fan heaved out a sigh of relief. Seemed like his plan had gained yet another success story to tell. At that moment, Lin Fan did not wait for the Great Earth Master God to make any unnecessary actions as he controlled the heaven and earth smelt to have that guy caged within it immediately. Uproar. Just who in the world is that fella? Where has the Great Earth Master God gone? What happened? Why did the Great Earth Master God seem to have vanished all of a sudden? At that moment, all of those people down below started getting into a state of nervousness. But, just as the hunting Master God was about to speak up, a figure appeared before him. Stunned, the hunting Master God stood there as though he was unable to recover from the shock while Lin Fan merely slapped down his palm onto his shoulder. Chuckling out, Lin Fan's mask disappeared instantly as he revealed his original face. You're that indigenous being of the endless mainland. The hunting Master God exclaimed out all of a sudden, dumbstruck once more. PSSSSCH. A stabbing sound came forth. The face of the hunting Master God grimaced up as he revealed a look of disbelief. Lowering his head, he found a dagger stabbed right into his stomach. Fresh drops of blood were dripping down from the blade of that dagger. The hunting Master God felt that he had just been stabbed by someone. Wait a minute, no. He was indeed being stabbed by someone right now. Immediately, the hunting Master God grabbed out at the arm of the other party. But, he could sense that there was a surge of power that was infiltrating his body through it. That stream of power blocked away his god powers such that he could not fight back at all. The dagger was pulled out. But, it didn't take long before another stab was dug in. The face of the hunting Master God changed drastically as his body shivered uncontrollably. Just who in the world are you? The hunting Master God spoke up, his voice hoarser than ever. He could sense that his life force was being lost continuously, and could disappear at any moment now. Lin Fan's expression was calm while he let out a gentle smirk. Lin Fan of the Heaven and Earth sect. The hunting master god did not know who this fellow was at all, but he could not imagine that this fellow would have been able to keep himself hidden so deeply that he couldn't tell in the slightest bit at all. I don't even know you. The hunting master god just could not figure out why this person would have chosen him. He did not seem to recall ever having offended this guy before. While he wanted to beg for mercy, the dignity of being a master god did not allow him to do so. Goodbye now, master god. Lin Fan declared. Stab. Stab. In and out, in and out. His motions were swift as he stabbed a couple more times. This series of motion continued till the point where the hunting master god had lost every single bit of aura before coming to a stop. This was simply way too amazing of a feeling. Lin Fan did not know why, but all of a sudden, he seemed to have fallen in love with this move of stabbing someone continuously. Each time he stabbed someone, he would feel this incredible and unrivaled pleasure. In fact, at this point, he had already forgotten about the number of people that he had stabbed to death. He only knew that there were plenty for sure. Even till his death, the hunting master god did not retaliate at all. This was something that was of the utmost humiliation for him. Ding. Congratulations on killing hunting master god. Ding. Experience points plus. Ding. Obtained hunting dimension. Lin Fan was slightly baffled, to think that he would have actually obtained something. He had slain so many master gods by now, but none of them seemed to have dropped anything for him just yet. The hunting dimension was just a crystal object, and Lin Fan could not tell of what was special about it. Hunting dimension, formed from the god core of the hunting master god. It can encompass brave hunters to take on missions of hunting within the hunting dimension. Current hunting dimension, none. This thingy seemed to be rather decent. It was pretty similar to some master god dimension or something. But for Lin Fan, this thingy didn't seem like it would have much use. Furthermore, there wasn't even any hunting dimension right now, that was as good as being useless. But perhaps, he could keep it and research it properly in the future. Ah, he killed the hunting master god. Hunting master god. That's the hunting master god. At that moment, all of those living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland were completely flabbergasted. They had not expected that things would turn out as such. That was a master god. And yet, this indigenous being was able to have both of them killed. That strength he possessed. This. Unimaginable. This was truly unimaginable. Looking at those living beings that were making a break for it, Lin Fan's lips curled into a grin as the great Buddha's light of purification shone down upon the entire world. Since he had already come over, it would truly not be enough to recoup for his efforts if he did not purify some living beings. Ah, N-O-V-E in .C Om. Against that boundless power of purification from Lin Fan, there was no one who could do anything to defend that all. One after another, tragic shrieks rang out across the entire world as those menacing faces took on a stark change. From evil, they turned to good. From good, they turned into completely letting go of every attachment to the world. Buddha started singing out with Buddhist sutras beside the ears of these living beings as the power of purification wrapped itself around every single one of them. With that, a series of notifications rang out from the system. Lin Fan's lips curled into a grin. This was the type of effect that he had wanted. Under the power of purification, there was no person who could escape at all. And right at that moment, something happened up in the void. Lin Fan raised his head over. He could sense the aura of the boundless future Buddha Lord. Lin Fan, to think that you would actually dare to appear here. A boundless Buddha voice boomed over, causing the entire void to explode out in its might. Boundless future Buddha Lord, seems like you're ready to die. Lin Fan smirked out brightly. Insolent. At the first instance, the boundless future Buddha Lord had sensed out this vast Buddha power from afar. When he arrived at this place, he could not believe that the lad had dared to make his appearance here. This was practically a case of him wandering into hell when he could stay safe and alive by hiding out. Lin Fan looked over at the living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland that he had purified. Go and attack him. Boom. All of a sudden, the boundless future Buddha Lord was surrounded by those living beings. Lin Fan roared out in laughter, bald monk. Come at me if you've got the guts. Courting death. The boundless future Buddha Lord barked out in rage as he slammed down with a single palm. How could these living beings of the Moon Shadow mainland possibly be a match for the boundless future Buddha Lord? With that single palm strike, it was only natural that there would be an entire river of blood ensuing. Standing there, Lin Fan cast his sights into the distance before vanishing from the spot. Right at the moment that Lin Fan had vanished, he heard a few mighty voices coming forth from the void. Boundless future Buddha Lord, how dare you kill my people of the Moon Shadow Mainland? Chapter 1135 Something doesn't seem right. Chapter 1135. Something doesn't seem right. Lin Fan, I swear that I'm not a Buddha if I don't have you killed. Just as Lin Fan left, he heard those final roars coming forth from the boundless future Buddha Lord. As to what happened at that place, he knew nothing about that. To think that the boundless future Buddha Lord would actually turn up and even allow Lin Fan that opportunity to frame him properly. The boundless future Buddha Lord striking out to massacre the living beings of the Moon Shadow Mainland was something that was witnessed by everyone else there was nothing to deny that. As to how everything would turn out, Lin Fan did not have to guess at all. But, no matter what, that had nothing to do with him anyway. Right now, Lin Fan's face was filled with the most spectacular smile as he flew through the void. This feeling was really way too pleasurable. The boundless future Buddha Lord was just like a fool. Yours truly only had to show some tricks and there he was, suffering and unable to do anything about it. It was time to see what else he could come up with in the future. This time around, he had managed to kill yet another 2 Master Gods. Initially, there were 69 Master Gods, so, that left 67 of them now. He definitely had to work harder to get more Master Gods slain. By then, his strength would skyrocket up furiously. What else could actually pose as a problem for him then? And even if anything could, all he had to do about that was to kill a couple more Master Gods then. Lin Fan checked out his surroundings. This was still a part of the territory occupied by those Master Gods right now. Looking far back into the distance, he caught sight of an intense battle breaking out. Even though he was such a far distance away, he could even sense out the aura that was emanating from there. That was the aura of the boundless future Buddha Lord and some other Master Gods. Even though the strength of the boundless future Buddha Lord was formidable, in the face of this many Master Gods, even he was going to be forced back. But right at that moment, Lin Fan was suddenly reminded of something. Holy FCK. How can I be so FCking stupid? The boundless future Buddha Lord is fighting against those Master Gods right now. How can I just leave so dumbly? I must absolutely get into hiding somewhere far in the depths and wait for a chance to launch a sneak attack. Suddenly, Lin Fan snapped to his senses. How could he just give up such a wonderful opportunity as such? Wouldn't that be one hell of a pity? Lin Fan turned his head back. They were still fighting over in the distance. If he were to head back right now, he would still be able to make it in time. Even though doing this is extremely risky, yours truly is an incredible man who loves to dance on the edge of a sword. While there is a chance I may cut my legs, the possible rewards for doing so are pretty generous. After contemplating for a moment, Lin Fan decided that he was definitely going back. If he didn't, he would definitely feel immense regret over that decision for life. Diving into the void, Lin Fan headed back straight in that direction he came from. However, he knew that he would have to play it safe. He would have to enter his stealth mode and retract his aura, keeping himself hidden in the void. The boundless future Buddha Lord was being surrounded and ganged against by a group of Master Gods. The strength of those Master Gods was formidable. While one-on-one, some of them might not be a match for the boundless future Buddha Lord himself, now that they were grouped up, their strength was unimaginable. Even if he was the boundless future Buddha Lord, he might not be able to take all of them down. Not only that, the boundless future Buddha Lord did not dare to get ruthless with his moves. After all, he had a cooperative relationship with the Master Gods of the Moon Shadow Mainland. If he were to fall out with all of these Master Gods of the Moon Shadow Mainland, everything he had wanted to accomplish would no longer be completed that easily. The boundless future Buddha Lord was screaming at all of these Master Gods, "What are you guys doing? You have all been deceived by that indigenous being. He was the one who had caused everything." However, no matter how hard the boundless future Buddha Lord tried to explain himself, those Master Gods would have none of it. That was because they had witnessed the boundless future Buddha Lord killing their people with their very eyes. Did the boundless future Buddha Lord really think that they were blind? With that single palm strike of his, several thousands of their people had died. Even though those people were nothing more than mere ants in the eyes of the Master Gods, they were still their people at the end of the day, not people that the boundless future Buddha Lord could go and massacre. The 5 Master Gods present burst forth with a tremendous amount of power, causing the boundless future Buddha Lord to defend with a heart filled with fury. His hatred was unceasing toward Lin Fan. Everything was all caused by that darned lad. If not for him, how could something as such have ever happened? The great Buddha's light of purification. That was an unparalleled mystic skill that could purify all living beings in the world, and also a mystic skill that the boundless future Buddha Lord wished to get his hands upon the most. But regrettably, he did not manage to do so. Boundless future Buddha Lord, you slaughtering our people is something that we had witnessed for ourselves. Do you wish to deny that? The Master Gods demanded fiercely. Lin Fan remained hidden in the void, his heart filled with glee. That was right, this was the type of effect he had wished for. They should hurry and kill this boundless future Buddha Lord so that he could wait out and just reap in the rewards. Yours truly would just have to sit here in the void obediently and watch the show go on. As long as there was a clear victory in sight, that would be the time for yours truly to come out. This battle between the boundless future Buddha Lord and the Master Gods did not seem that intense though. Weren't these Master Gods way too cowardly? They should just hurry up and use their ultimate moves. As long as they were to do that, it would be the perfect opportunity for him to start showcasing his talents. The boundless future Buddha Lord sighed out, Amitabha. We have all been deceived by that indigenous being. All of those people were controlled by an unparalleled immortal art used by that indigenous being, and were no longer the people you guys used to know a long time ago. Otherwise, why else would your boundless future Buddha Lord make a move to have them killed? Lin Fan looked at this somewhat peaceful situation and felt his heart clench up a little. This wasn't right now. Those Master Gods must not be deceived by that bald monk. That is the fella that had your people killed. You guys have to continue fighting with him so that yours truly can actually have a chance of striking out. Lin Fan thought. Lin Fan's experience points right now had already received a massive jump after killing many of those Master Gods. If he were to continue working hard like this, his strength would most likely turn even more formidable. By then, that would really be one hell of an awesome state of things. And indeed, right at that moment, a voice had Lin Fan feeling the pleasure of flying up into the skies. Boundless future Buddha Lord, don't try to lie to us any longer. We were here to witness it for ourselves. How can that not be true? Go to hell. The Master Gods had deployed their ultimate moves now as a boundless god power surged up into the void. This was something that was absolutely eye-popping. With that, the powers of all 5 of those Master Gods were combined together as they struck out at the boundless future Buddha Lord. Bam! The entire void ruptured out with void currents that were berserk to the point of being practically horrifying. When Lin Fan caught sight of that scene, his heart leapt with joy. This was the sort of effect that he had wanted. This level of strength was just way too intense. Only, he did not know how things were as a whole. Looking over, he could tell that the 5 Master Gods were just duking it out with the boundless future Buddha Lord. Both sides had sustained injuries as the boundless future Buddha Lord clutched out at his chest. He then raised his head, revealing a line of blood that was dripping down from the sides of his lips. As for the 5 Master Gods, their faces were drained of color as well, looking miserable as one could be. Instantly, the atmosphere of the entire place felt extremely repressed. The boundless future Buddha Lord looked at the 5 Master Gods, and vice versa. This entire affair is truly just a mere misunderstanding. Yet, to think that you guys would choose not to believe in your Buddha Lord. Now that all of us are severely injured, if that indigenous being were to find out about it, he'd most probably just laugh till his entire jaw dropped. The boundless future Buddha Lord remarked. The 5 Master Gods snorted out coldly, there's no way that you can deceive us. We were here to witness it for ourselves. How can that not be true? At this moment, Lin Fan was merely observing the happenings of the situation. However, his brows started furrowing up. This didn't make sense. Given the level of strength that was exuded earlier, there shouldn't be any reason why it should cause such a great impact, right? No, he had better just wait it out more, just in case there was some problem in all of it. Chapter 1136 Force his way through. Chapter 1136 Force his way through. Lin Fan kept himself hidden in the void. He was long afraid of being set up by the boundless future Buddha Lord just like before, therefore, he was naturally more cautious right now. Being such a crafty fella, the boundless future Buddha Lord was definitely not someone whom Lin Fan could scam and kill that easily. Even though Lin Fan was always extravagant in his actions from the past, he wasn't some little expert who would throw himself into the pits of death. Everything would only take place after he had the utmost confidence of it working out. At that moment, Lin Fan started contemplating. Should he start with killing the boundless future Buddha Lord or the other 5 Master Gods later on? This was truly a question that was worth pondering over. The boundless future Buddha Lord was not a simple foe. Even if he were injured, he still definitely wasn't someone that Lin Fan could FCK over just like that. As for the other 5 Master Gods, they didn't seem all that strong. Even if they weren't injured, Lin Fan would have the confidence of killing them all, let alone in a situation as such right now. Nevertheless, he had to play it safe. Even though he really wanted to have the boundless future Buddha Lord killed, he had better not get himself into a situation where he would get nothing in the end. In that case, he would suffer one hell of a loss. Therefore, his final conclusion was to get those 5 master gods killed first. As for the boundless future Buddha Lord, there was no hurry about that. If he got lucky, he could just get this guy killed as well. But if he didn't, then he would just leave him for the future. After all, he was already getting one hell of a profit from this affair this time around. At that moment, Lin Fan was still camping in wait without coming out at all. Once again, the boundless future Buddha Lord and the 5 master gods went at one another, causing a boundless surge of power to burst out. The void rattled out violently. This was a fight involving pure brute power. Anyone below the state of immortal kings would definitely find themselves minced into shreds if they were sucked into this situation. Bam! Yet another clash took place. While the boundless future Buddha Lord wasn't injured, the light around him seemed to have diminished slightly. As for the 5 master gods, their injuries seemed somewhat on the serious side. Lin Fan felt that it was about time for him to strike now. Pishu! Instantly, Lin Fan appeared behind the back of the 5 master gods. Gathering his aura, he hurled out a punch and was prepared to first have the 5 master gods killed. The brows of the boundless future Buddha Lord twitched with joy. He's here. Shing! The void quaked out, and those initially severely injured master gods recovered to full health all of a sudden. When Lin Fan caught sight of the situation, he froze up for a moment. He seemed to have been set up by them once more. The aura of the 5 master gods was way stronger than before, and at the same time, they seemed to have been prepared for this. Indigenous being, you've finally come. In a flash, the 5 master gods turned around as a series of formidable god powers exploded out. F***king mother F***ck. Lin Fan cussed out in his heart. The way things were right now, even if he could not deal with it, he still would have to go deal with it. He had decided to come at them after such a difficult decision. No matter what, he would have to take at least one of them down. Arg! The powers within Lin Fan's hands burst forth as he bolted for one of the master gods right in the middle of everyone. That master god's face changed immediately as he yelped out, "He's trying to kill me. Benefactor, your Buddha Lord here has long seen through your antics and predicted that you would come. Therefore, I've been waiting here for a long time now." The boundless future Buddha Lord spoke up and appeared behind Lin Fan's back instantly, striking out at him with a palm strike from behind. While Lin Fan could totally disregard the attacks of those few master gods, he could definitely not ignore the power that was being sent forth by the boundless future Buddha Lord. The strength of that fellow was far from normal. A single palm strike from him was definitely more than enough to have Lin Fan sustaining severe injuries. No velp in .c ohm. Grabbing out at one of those master gods with his arm, Lin Fan took out a fake soap in his other hand and threw it out at the boundless future Buddha Lord. "Ha, bald monk, you thought that I was trying to kill these master gods? I was trying to lure you over so that I can have you killed by this soap." Lin Fan roared out into laughter. When the boundless future Buddha Lord caught sight of the soap, his entire expression changed. He was someone who knew about just how powerful that soap was, and this was even more so when it was used by this crafty lad. The other time around, that lad had used a fake one to try and scam him. So, he was initially skeptical about everything this time around. But, when he heard the lad saying that he was only attacking the master gods to lure him over, he was startled and retreated back furiously right away. He did not want to bet on this, neither did he dare to. In his eyes, the risk involved was not worth taking. Arg! The other 4 master gods slammed their attacks onto Lin Fan's body. However, the latter still threw out his palm strike regardless and struck at the master god right in the middle. Bam! A tragic wail rang out as that master god was torn into 4-5 pieces due to Lin Fan's palm strike. A boundless amount of power surged right through his entire body, destroying it entirely. Carefree and easy, it was extremely simple. Ding! Congratulations on killing Sky Master God. Ding! Experience points plus. The strike from those 4 master gods sent Lin Fan flying off as the blood within his body rumbled out furiously, causing him to spit out a mouthful of fresh blood into the skies. He then used his mythical parasol tree to send a large stream of life force gushing into his body so that his wounds could be healed up. As for that soap that was thrown out, it had the boundless future Buddha Lord scared half to death. But when he realized that the soap was nothing but a fake, he was so mad that he was about to explode from anger. Damn it, you've tricked me again, the boundless future Buddha Lord howled out. He had not expected that he would be deceived by that lad once again. Lin Fan floated gently up in the void and was just cussing out in his heart, his FC King Chicken WHRE of a mother. That bald monk was indeed trying to set me up. Bloody hell, and here I was thinking about how the boundless future Buddha Lord could possibly arrive this quickly. Not only that, all of those master gods had managed to come in time as well. Seems like everything was but a show for me. Damn it, FC King scary people these guys are. So what if I've tricked you? What I want to do is to trick a big idiot like you. Lin Fan scolded out at that boundless future Buddha Lord. Bloody hell, something as underhanded as such could have only been conceived by that bald monk. Otherwise, who else could manage that? Crafty and despicable, he had even bloody put on an act with the 5 master gods to try and lure yours truly out. And the worst thing was that Lin Fan had fallen for their hoodwinking, and was really drawn out. If not for the fact that his physical body state was extremely tough, and coupled with the fact that the strength of those 5 master gods wasn't that strong either, he might have really been killed with a single palm strike of theirs. Nevertheless, it was still a gain for him at the moment. To think that he would have earned the kill of a master god in a short span of time still. Right now, there was going to be one less master gods out there, dropping their numbers down to 66. Looking at the remaining 4 master gods, Lin Fan was starting to have some ideas about them. He had a good mind of killing all 4 of them at one go. Looking at how the Sky Master God was killed by that indigenous being, those 4 master gods felt their hearts clenching up and being filled with a boundless rage. They raised their heads up at the boundless future Buddha Lord. Why are you still not striking out? Are you actually colluding with this indigenous being here? At that moment earlier on, the boundless future Buddha Lord clearly had a good chance to strike out and have that indigenous being killed. But, to think that he would have suddenly vanished, wasting that one and only precious chance they had. And now that he was still not striking out, that was something that had the other 4 master gods feeling entirely infuriated. Gosh, you guys, do you just have to spill the beans? This bald monk is truly my partner from the start. But no matter, telling you guys today will make no difference anyway. After all 4 of you are going to die here today. Perhaps, you guys don't know this yet, but the Water Master God and the Radiant Master God were both killed by me. And, my accomplice was none other than the boundless future Buddha Lord. Hee hee hee, Lin Fan roared out in laughter. Shut up, don't malign me with your lies. The boundless future Buddha Lord roared out. Lin Fan's lips curled into a grin. Perhaps if he were to take it slow and kill them, he could mow down all of these master gods cleanly. By then, yours truly would be lauded as the great hero that had saved the entire endless mainland. Chapter 1137 1 verses 5. Chapter 1137, 1 verses 5. The boundless future Buddha Lord knew that unless he managed to clarify everything today, there was a chance those 4 master gods might really just be hoodwinked by that lad. He did not know what that lad was trying to achieve by consistently smearing his name in front of the master gods from time to time. Even though he had not managed to succeed the first couple of times, the boundless future Buddha Lord knew that his plan would be messed up if the other were to succeed even once. Turning around to look at the other 4 master gods, the boundless future Buddha Lord said, "Don't you guys believe the words of that lad? In the endless mainland, that lad is well known for being crafty. What he's trying to do right now is to create misunderstandings between your Buddha Lord and you guys so that he can sit back and reap in the rewards of us falling out. We must definitely not let his schemes succeed." The 4 master gods continued to look at the boundless future Buddha Lord. It wasn't that they didn't believe him. However, some things that had happened had already caused them to feel skeptical toward this person. This was especially the case with that golden opportunity being lost earlier on. The boundless future Buddha Lord chose to back out at the last moment, resulting in the Sky Master God being killed by this indigenous being. There were already quite a number of them that had fallen by now, and if more of them were to fall, it would be a rather significant blow to them. Judging from the situation, the boundless future Buddha Lord knew that his explanation was not going to cut it anymore unless he were to explain it clearer. Left without a choice, he spoke up, "All of you must watch out. That lad has a treasure on him that is able to manipulate your consciousness." Even though the Radiant Master God was extremely strong, he too was no match in the face of that treasure. However, from what I know, that treasure should only be able to control 2 people at one time. When the 4 master gods heard those words, they shuddered out momentarily. To think that there could be a treasure as such that existed in the world. As for Lin Fan, he was just cussing out at the boundless future Buddha Lords in his heart right now. He then scolded out, "Are you guys stupid or what? How could there possibly be such a treasure within the world? Let me tell you guys, that bald monk is simply just lying to you guys. What he wants is for you guys to die as quickly as possible. Haven't you guys realized it yet? Bald monk, stop messing around with these master gods now. Let us hurry to join forces and get them killed. Bullshit, don't malign me with your lies. The boundless future Buddha Lord was thoroughly enraged right now. This lad was really rather shameless now, wasn't he? Among the immortal king powerful beings out there, which one of them wasn't some top-tiered being who stood atop the world? And yet, this lad here only specialized in using dirty tricks. Worse still, he seemed like he was just getting more comfortable with them by the second. Each time the boundless future Buddha Lord came into contact with that lad, he would try to sabotage him and smear his name. It was as though that lad would feel uncomfortable in his heart until he managed to cause the boundless future Buddha Lord to fall out with the rest of the master gods. And this was especially the case right now. When the boundless future Buddha Lord looked at how the other four master gods were looking at him with suspicious glances, he could not help but feel exasperated. What a bunch of master gods without brains. Raising his finger, the future gear that was revolving around the boundless future Buddha Lord suddenly danced out. I, the boundless future Buddha Lord, swear to the firmaments that if I've got any bit of collaboration with this lad before me, I will descend into the loops of endless reincarnation without a chance of getting reborn ever again. Boom! All of a sudden, the entire world boomed out with a resounding blast as infinite beams of Buddhist lights shot out of the future gear right into the skies. From the unknowns, a single will descended down. This was an oath, similar to how the master gods of the Moon Shadow mainland would swear upon the name of their master of chaos. The boundless future Buddha Lord had not expected that he would actually be forced into making an oath by this lad. In his eyes, this was just a complete humiliation. As a Buddha Lord, he naturally had a sense of pride of his own. But right now, he had no other choice. That lad was already addicted to framing him, so how could he possibly let the latter succeed with his ploys? Looking at everything before him, Lin Fan was stumped. To think that the boundless future Buddha Lord would be so ballsy to actually go and swear to the firmaments of the endless mainland. This was something that left him rather exasperated. The boundless future Buddha Lord then looked over at the four master gods. Do you guys believe me now? Given the current situation, the four master gods nodded their heads slightly. At this moment, they believed in the boundless future Buddha Lord. They then turned their gazes towards Lin Fan. To think that this indigenous being would be this despicable. If not for Brother Buddha Lord's oath to the firmaments, we might truly have been beguiled by him. Right now, let us join hands. No matter what, we would have to get him killed. Kill. At that moment, when Lin Fan looked at everything before him, his mind could only whirl out furiously. The strength of the boundless future Buddha Lord was immense. Given his current state, if he wanted to just depend on his pure strength, he would not be able to kill the other party. But, he knew that if the latter wanted to have him killed, that would be something impossible as well. Forget it, I'll just have to suffer a bit then. Even if he couldn't get the boundless future Buddha Lord killed, he would have to get the other four master gods killed for sure. Chasm Master God, Whirlwind Master God, Contract Master God, Void Master God. The godheads of these four master gods were rather peculiar, with tyrannical abilities to their names. However, to Lin Fan, taking them on was not that much of a challenge. The boundless future Buddha Lord glared at Lin Fan. Lad, even if you wish to run away today, I'd garner that'd be rather difficult. Lin Fan chuckled in reply, why should I run? The past is not the same as the present. This is something that will have you see me in a new light. Do you really think that I'm the same me from the past, such that I would be helpless when facing you? Boundless future Buddha Lord, you're thinking too lightly of things. Pishu. In a flash, Lin Fan's body moved out. Hugging his arms together, his powers started gathering with such immensity that the entire world quivered in the face of it. Chasm Master God, you shall be the first one hammered to death by yours truly. The Chasm Master God raised his head as his eyelids moved slightly. As all 10 of his fingers wriggled, the entire void exploded out while a series of chasms appeared between the heaven and earth, tugging at Lin Fan's entire body with a tremendous suction force. Indigenous being, you are 1 against 5 right now. What capabilities do you think you have? You're just seeking to humiliate yourself. The deafening voice of the Chasm Master God roared out. With that single move of his bolting out, the entire world fell into darkness as though all of them had just fallen into an infinitely deep chasm. The Whirlwind Master God heaved in a deep breath of air, causing a pillar of whirlwind to gust out. While the whirlwind wasn't large in size, the amount of power that it contained was quite horrifying. A devastating force ripped out and destroyed the world around it with great force. Right now, the pressure on Lin Fan was rather huge with the 1 versus 5 situation. This was especially the case considering that the boundless future Buddha Lord had yet to make a move even up till now. No matter what Lin Fan did, he still had to spare his attention to watch out for that bald A*S monk. After all, no one knew when the latter would actually start making a move. And Lin Fan knew that if the boundless future Buddha Lord were to strike, his impact on the fight would definitely be unimaginable. That ripping power of the winds whirled out. Lin Fan's brows twitched as he tilted his body slightly, turning around to return a punch. The power of doomsday gushed out, striking right onto the whirlwind. Boom! Swaying unsteadily, the whirlwind dissipated out in the next moment. However, the power of the whirlwind master god was not limited to this as a powerful gust swam out from within the void. With a single, whoosh, sound, it sliced by Lin Fan's face, and a thin line of blood appeared. Lin Fan caressed his wound as it recovered almost immediately. To think that it would be this sharp. Right now, Lin Fan's strength could be considered absolutely tyrannical. However, he could not help but feel wary about the sharpness of the whirlwind master god's powers. Even though it might not deal some threatening damage to him, the fact that this fellow was striking out at him sneakily from the sidelines was quite cumbersome to deal with. The whirlwind master god scoffed out coldly, "Count your blessings that your head wasn't sliced off entirely." Lin Fan looked at the whirlwind master god and heaved in a deep breath of air, his eyes shining with an endless glint. "Alright, since that's the case, I'll FCK you to death first then. N-O-V-L-B in .C Ohm." The contract master god chimed in with disdain, "Indigenous being, with us around, do you think that you'll succeed?" Lin Fan tossed a casual glance at the few of them. Taking a stride forth, he struck out at the whirlwind master god, extending his palm, he reached for the whirlwind master god. At this, the whirlwind master god laughed out coldly, "Know your place." Boom! A whirlwind appeared furiously, slicing the void apart with its razor-like sharpness. At the same time, the whirlwind master god was wrapped within that whirlwind. "Indigenous being, if you wish to kill your master god, we'll just have to see if you've got what it takes." Lin Fan's lips curled into a cold grin as that hand of his just reached out to touch that whirlwind. When the boundless future Buddha Lord caught sight of everything before him, he froze up slightly. "Watch out, don't push foolishly beyond your limits against this lad." Chapter 1138 Shroud the entire world in a veil of darkness. Chapter 1138. Shroud the entire world in a veil of darkness. The whirlwind master god roared out in laughter, "Brother Buddha Lord, feel at ease. The strength of your master god isn't something that someone like him can possibly break through. The power of whirlwind can shred even the heaven and earth apart. With just his mere physical flesh body, what capabilities could he have?" Lin Fan's face tensed up as he exuded a ferocious aura. "Shred the heaven and earth? Who are you trying to bluff?" Shred. Bam! As Lin Fan extended his hand into that whirlwind, the sharp power of whirlwind sliced out at it repeatedly. Slice, slice, fresh blood sprayed out everywhere. Even though Lin Fan's physical body state was already at the immortal king state, it was rather surprising that his entire arm would still have wounds sliced out under the effect of that razor-sharp whirlwind. "Ha, how is that? Soon, your arm is going to disappear entirely." The whirlwind master god roared out in laughter. Being wrapped by the whirlwind, he felt no fear at all. He knew that his powers were unrivaled. For an indigenous being as such to dream of going against his whirlwind with just his flesh body alone was definitely just a dream. Looking at everything before him, the boundless future Buddha Lord spoke out to the other 3 master gods around him, "Strike." The auras of the Chasm Master God, Contract Master God, and the Void Master God exploded out with a ferocity that blanketed the entire world in an extremely sharp power, intending to crush Lin Fan's back. Right now, Lin Fan's only thought was to have the Whirlwind Master God crushed. But all of a sudden, he sensed a strong surge of power from the boundless future Buddha Lord and the other few Master Gods coming from behind him. Those powers coming from 4 sources were extremely formidable. If he were to be struck by it, that would definitely pose some troubles for him. Sensing that, Lin Fan's aura took on a stark change, causing a great amount of power to gush into that Heaven and Earth Sutra on his back. Thereafter, golden text characters flew out into the skies one after another and burst forth with a brilliant gleam of light. For a long time now, Lin Fan had not used the Heaven and Earth Sutra. But now that his strength had already reached that of an immortal king, the powers within his body were definitely enough to sustain the Heaven and Earth Sutra at this point. When the boundless future Buddha Lord caught sight of those text characters, his expression changed slightly. As for the other three master gods, they did not let it bother them at all as their powers continued to pour out just like a raging river. Clang! A metallic sound rang forth as the combined powers of the boundless future Buddha Lord and the three master gods made contact with the Heaven and Earth Sutra. The kill text character started encircling the boundless future Buddha Lord as an extremely sharp killing aura shot out at him, who roared out in rage, "Damn it! Do you think that you will be able to hold back your Buddha Lord with just these alone?" Right now, Lin Fan did not even have the spare energy to pay any attention to the boundless future Buddha Lord. He sent a surge of powers to gush right into the Heaven and Earth Sutra, bringing forth 10 text characters to hold the boundless future Buddha Lord off. With that, Lin Fan turned his gaze toward the Whirlwind Master God. "You will definitely have to die today." The Whirlwind Master God merely scoffed out on hearing that remark, totally unfazed by Lin Fan in the slightest bit. "Indigenous being, before you talk about killing your Master God, I would ask you to check out your arm properly first." Right now, a series of cuts were already starting to shred Lin Fan's arm that was in the middle of the whirlwind. In fact, the flesh and blood that was exposed was even starting to pulsate out. The experience points for Lin Fan's physical body state were shooting up furiously at this moment. However, he did not have the mood to be bothered about raising that at this moment. Instead, he just wanted to have the Whirlwind Master God killed. Lin Fan roared out as the mythical parasol tree within his body burst forth with a formidable amount of life force. "Whirlwind Master God, do you really think that you can keep yours truly away with just these capabilities?" At that moment, that arm of Lin Fan which was filled with wounds healed up all of a sudden. Once more, the razor-sharp whirlwind ripped out at it. However, each time a single wound was created, it would be healed back by the life force, leaving not even a single scar behind. As for the boundless future Buddha Lord, he was being pestered by the Heaven and Earth Sutra at this moment. With the sustenance of Lin Fan's profound powers, one text character would rush forth and strike at the boundless future Buddha Lord each time he managed to suppress the previous one. Sensing this, boundless future Buddha Lord roared, "Whirlwind Master God, hurry and retreat. The strength of this lad is not something you can defend against." "It's too late," Lin Fan howled out as his arm jerked out momentarily, sending forth an endless stream of immortal arts that penetrated through that whirlwind. Catching sight of this, the Whirlwind Master God was stunned. He had realized that the strength of this indigenous being had suddenly increased. Right now, he could understand why the boundless future Buddha Lord was warning him earlier on to retreat. However, it was all too late by now. Boom! With a maddened roar, the boundless future Buddha Lord shouted out and suppressed Lin Fan's Heaven and Earth Sutra. Right after, a bright flash of Buddhist light shone out, suppressing all the Heaven and Earth Sutra characters that were bothering the other three master gods as well. He then barked out, "Kill that lad." Lin Fan's mighty strength was just pummeling down, cutting through the whirlwind entirely before grabbing out at the brains of the Whirlwind Master God. Arg! Damn it! The face of the Whirlwind Master God changed. He had not expected that this indigenous being would actually be this formidable to be able to pierce through his power of whirlwind. The Whirlwind Master God yelled out, causing the power from the God core within his body to burst forth. With that, an even sharper whirlwind erupted forth from the top of his head. "To think that you would even dare to dream of defending at a moment like this. You're just absolutely trying to court death." Lin Fan was totally disregarding the three other master gods as well as the boundless future Buddha Lord right now. Within his palm, a tremendous amount of power erupted forth that repressed the powers of the Whirlwind Master God's God core entirely. Spreading his fingers wide open, Lin Fan grabbed the head of the Whirlwind Master God with a single palm while an enormous force emanated from it. "Whirlwind Master God, you can go and die now." Lin Fan roared out in laughter. At this moment, the powers that were sent forth by the boundless future Buddha Lord and the three other master gods had exploded out at Lin Fan as well. "Indigenous being, you'd dare." Bam! Lin Fan did not hesitate as he tightened his grip with his fingers, caving in the head of the Whirlwind Master God and smashing it right away. At the same time, a boundless amount of power rushed down from his head area as well, causing his god core to be shattered. This was a master god, an immortal king state being. Smashing his head into sludge wasn't going to kill him, the only way to have him killed was by destroying his god core entirely. Bam! Powers from four sources struck out and shot right into Lin Fan's body. As a result, he wobbled over while the four different powers cruised their way around his entire body. Without thinking twice, he bolted away in a flash to increase the distance between him and the four of them. At the same time, he coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood, spraying it out into the air. When the Void Master God caught sight of the slain Whirlwind Master God, He howled out, "Indigenous being, you're F***king looking to die." Lin Fan's back was in an extremely terrible state. This was especially the case when the 4 different powers were running rampant and wreaking havoc in his entire physical body. Ding! Discovered 4 different destructive powers contained in the body. Suppressing them right away. At that instant, a notification from the system rang out, and the 4 different powers were repressed down immediately. Lin Fan smirked out with joy as he wiped away the fresh blood from the sides of his lips. He then raised his head. "How about now? Yours truly has just slain that whirlwind master god right in front of your faces. But, what could you do about that? Next up, it's the turn for you 3 master gods. And of course, the last will be you, Boundless FC King future Buddha Lord. Do you really think that you will get the chance to do so?" The contract master god barked out furiously. Lin Fan gave a nonchalant smile as his life force gushed out and began healing his body entirely. "How do we know unless we give it a shot?" The brows of the boundless future Buddha Lord furrowed. He had not expected that this lad would be so difficult to deal with. And not only that, his strength was even greater than before. This was truly unexpected. "Fellow master gods, we must definitely combine forces later on. This time around, we must absolutely not let this lad escape. Otherwise, he will definitely be a thorn in our flesh," the boundless future Buddha Lord remarked. The contract master god glared at Lin Fan and declared with a baleful expression, "This person has got to die today." Lin Fan curled his fingers into fists, giving off cracking sounds at the same time. His body then trembled out, causing a strong aura to gush out from within his body. "Very well, let's give it a shot today then. Time to see if I can get all of you guys butchered." This time around, Lin Fan somehow did not make any preparations to run at all. Since this was how things were going to be, he might as well slaughter at them till the entire world was shrouded in a veil of darkness. Chapter 1139 3 seconds. Do you guys believe me? Chapter 1139, 3 seconds. Do you guys believe me? The boundless future Buddha Lord had not expected that this lad would have been this ruthless. This was completely beyond his imaginations. Back in the past, wanting to kill this lad was something that he could have done with extreme ease. Who would have thought that he would have been able to progress to such an extent by now? He had just killed the whirlwind master god right in front of their eyes. This was something extremely horrifying. At that moment, Lin Fan's battle intent was extremely high-strung. He then looked at the 3 remaining master gods and the boundless future Buddha Lord. "What other methods do you guys have? Later on, all of you will end up like the whirlwind master god, crushed by yours truly into nothing but dust." He had an extremely optimistic outlook toward the current situation. It wasn't entirely impossible for him to have those 3 other master gods killed. While he might end up sustaining some slight injuries as a result, none of that would matter anymore. As for the boundless future Buddha Lord, that fellow was still somewhat more cunning. That fellow would most likely not let Lin Fan have such an easy time killing those 3 master gods. But, if he wanted to step in and stop the latter, that would also have to depend on whether he had the capabilities to do so. Void Master God, Contract Master God, Chasm Master God. The 3 of them stood up in the void, their eyes sparkling with a sharp glint. Right now, their hatred was torrential and burning rampantly. The death of the whirlwind master god had left them feeling exceptionally infuriated. If they did not have this indigenous being killed, they would definitely feel a deep chagrin over it. This was especially the case after that indigenous being had actually dared to declare that he would have them killed. In their eyes, that was nothing but a fool's dream. The whirlwind master god was simply way too careless earlier on to let this indigenous being seize the chance. However, they knew that they would absolutely not give this indigenous being the same chance. Under the combined forces of the 4 of them, there would only be a single outcome awaiting this indigenous being, death. Boundless future Buddha Lord, let us join forces. No matter what, we must definitely have this indigenous being killed. The contract master god yelled out. Alright, right now, the thing that the boundless future Buddha Lord was the wariest about was that secretive treasure of that lad. As long as he were to watch out for that treasure and not allow himself to get set up by it, there would definitely be no issues about it. Herg, 4 pillars of aura shot up into the sky like heaven-piercing pillars, penetrating through the clouds instantly. Gradually, the eyes of the Void Master God began to undergo some changes, slowly turning into void themselves. Within those eyes was a place that was like a vast universe in itself, encompassing a boundless heaven and earth. From time to time, it would even exude an extremely chilling aura. Indigenous being, you have already caused us to be completely incensed right now. With that, your death sentence has arrived. The Void Master God raised both of his arms. The void trembled as a mysterious aura burst forth from behind his body, causing a gigantic black hole to appear. It looked like a mighty beast which could devour the entire heavens, swallowing everything in its path. The void around it was filled with a devastating power. At the same time, the Contract Master God raised his hands as well, bringing forth a series of mysterious contractual symbols to float out in the void. All of those symbols gave off an extremely mysterious and mystifying power. While Lin Fan could tell that those powers weren't exactly the strongest out there, he knew that all of these master gods were one more mystifying than the other. The mystic skills and immortal arts that they had were way different compared to those of the Endless Mainland, hence, he definitely had to take things seriously. The Chasm Master God was the strongest amongst them. The power of Chasm he possessed seemed as though it was the vilest power out there, causing a series of black waves to blanket the entire world. Within it, it was nurturing the most horrifying creature that existed within the chasms, and brooding its devastating chasm aura as well. While the boundless future Buddha Lord did not move at all, the future gear revolving around his body gave off a bright, golden-colored Buddhist light. Against these four powerful beings, Lin Fan heaved in a deep breath of air as he burst forth with all of his firepower. His source of power erupted forth like a volcano at this moment, causing his entire body to be wrapped up by streams of light that moved around as though they had a life of their own. Herg! Lin Fan roared out as a gigantic aura started expanding out with his body as the core, causing a series of ripples to spread out in the entire world. Raising his head, those eyes of his which were filled with an unparalleled battle intent glared at the four powerful beings with a deathly stare. Very well, Contract Master God. You shall be the first one killed by yours truly. There's no way you're going to run. Lin Fan spoke up. This entire battle right now was going to be a fierce and hard one, but definitely exciting and intense. The Contract Master God looked over at Lin Fan while scoffing out, "Dream on." Bam! In a flash, Lin Fan moved out as his entire body tore through the void while he bolted toward the Contract Master God. Using his fingers like a knife, he cleaved down and sent forth a tremendously explosive sword will. Contract Master God, what capabilities have you got? Shred! The sword will sliced through the void as it arrived before the Contract Master God within a single breath. Sensing the formidable power that was being exuded along with the sword will, the Contract Master God did not hesitate at all as he spread open his palm, bursting forth with those mysterious symbols that collided against the oncoming sword will. Void Severance. Shred! A sharp light shot out of the palm of the Void Master God as he killed out at Lin Fan. HMPH. What's so great about being able to slice the void? Yours truly will show you what fighting with brute force is. Bam! When that beam of light struck onto Lin Fan's body, a loud metallic sound reverberated across the void. In fact, sparks were even flying out from the point of impact. Splat! Lin Fan's arm was actually sliced apart slightly because of that void severance. However, it was just a small injury which he could heal up in a split second, leaving not even a single scar behind. Lin Fan pursed his lips in disdain. What's that sh*t? That dealt no damage at all. The Void Master God gasped out, the body of this indigenous being is so strong. Earlier on, the power of Whirlwind of the Whirlwind Master God could not do anything to him. And right now, to think that even my Void Severance could not slice his body apart either. This is absolutely horrifying. The Chasm Master God did not say anything. Striking forth with a palm strike, the power of Chasm behind him gushed out like tidal waves that rumbled out furiously. Within that power of Chasm, a series of demonic monsters howled out malevolently. These were not creatures that existed between the heaven and earth, they were filled with the power of Chasm, and their strength was more formidable than normal, leaving everyone with nothing but chills running down their spines. As for the boundless future Buddha Lord, he was simply waiting for a chance. The speed of this lad was extremely fast, and his body was indeed strong. This was especially the case with that Heaven and Earth Sutra of his. That was something that the boundless future Buddha Lord himself wanted to get his hands on. To him, that wasn't something that this lad should own, that was something that belonged to Heavenly Lord Shinfeng. Only, what the boundless future Buddha Lord could not get was how this lad had managed to get his hands on it. What was his relationship with Heavenly Lord Shinfeng? Could he have actually managed to inherit the legacy of Heavenly Lord Shinfeng? That was the most likely possibility in the eyes of the boundless future Buddha Lord. In his mind, that was literally the only way that could explain this fact of him being in possession of the Heaven and Earth Sutra. As for whether or not this lad could be the reincarnation of Heavenly Lord Shinfeng, that was something entirely impossible in the eyes of the boundless future Buddha Lord. The reason for this was that back then, Heavenly Lord Shinfeng had already died, without even a single bit of aura left. Furthermore, Heavenly Lord Shinfeng's source was scattered out between the entire heaven and earth. How could he reincarnate and cultivate once more given those circumstances? Even though he had always borne a strong dislike toward Heavenly Lord Shinfeng, he could not help but acknowledge that the latter was still a true supremely powerful being. He was someone righteous and just, unlike this lad who was so despicable and shameless, vile, in fact. The treasures that he made use of were even more incredulous. Those were not stuff that ordinary people could have come up with ever. Because of those reasons, the boundless future Buddha Lord had long thrown away the possibility of Lin Fan being the reincarnation of Heavenly Lord Shinfeng. Looking at the masses, Lin Fan's lips curled into a grin. HMPH. All of you can come at me together. I'm going to count to 3, and thereafter, the contract master god is going to die. Do you guys believe me? Seems like you guys don't. Very well then, yours truly shall just let you guys have an eye-opener. Even if all of you are here, there is no way you can stand in the path of yours truly. At that moment, Lin Fan bolted out for the contract master god. Chapter 1140 Tricked Again. Chapter 1140, Tricked Again. At that moment, the contract master god started to cuss out at Lin Fan's mother. Was this indigenous being sick in the head or something? Of all the people here to FCK up, the latter chose him. Did that indigenous being see him as a pushover or what? You're just courting death. The powers of the contract master god burst forth as his god core started channeling the god powers within to ram out furiously. This was the power of a master god. Within the Moon Shadow mainland, the master gods were the absolute strongest existences. Against them, every other living being was nothing but an ant. For Lin Fan to taunt him as such, the contract master god had long been enraged, and was determined to have this damned indigenous being slain. He definitely had to teach this guy a lesson about how miserable his outcome would be after offending him. Lin Fan's lips curled into a cold smirk as he looked at the boundless future Buddha Lord with his side glance. Right now, he knew that he only had to watch out for this bald monk. As for the other master gods, he did not have to bother about them all that much. Doomsday calamity. Destruction. Instantly, Lin Fan threw out a single punch that exploded forth with countless immortal arts and mystic skills. The tip of his fist was covered by a layer of destructive power that could make one shiver just by looking at it. With that, the entire void shattered apart, and time itself was on the brink of disintegrating. This was just how scary the might of immortal kings was. But, if that were the case, the might of heavenly lords was something that was just inconceivable at this point. Boom! Power gushed over as a boundless pressure pushed against the contract master god. All of a sudden, his face changed entirely, realizing that the strength of this indigenous being had suddenly turned stronger than before. In fact, there was even a repressing force that was striking out at him, making him unable to defend against it. Indigenous being, your master god is not someone you can humiliate. The contract master god was giving it his all right now as he bolted out toward Lin Fan. At the same time, the boundless future Buddha Lord roared out in a furious rage as an infinite Buddha light pierced through the entire heaven and earth, causing the future gear to revolve wildly before disappearing into the void and heading over in Lin Fan's direction. As he flipped his palm, Lin Fan's eternal axe flashed out, swinging out toward that future gear. The splitting heaven's 3 stances was not something to be underestimated. Once its strength was to reach a certain extent, it could even cleave the entire heaven and earth apart. Catching sight of an opportunity, the Void Master God and the Chasm Master God were both delighted. Right now, that lad is just completely disregarding us. Boom! 2 mighty god powers slammed out onto Lin Fan's body, causing his blood to rumble furiously against that mighty formidable power. However, at that moment, Lin Fan was not bothered about that stuff. His gaze was still fixated on the contract master god as he roared out, "Go to hell." The boundless future Buddha Lord had not expected that this lad would actually continue fighting despite his injuries. He was just completely ignoring the Void Master God and the Chasm Master God. Damn it! The blood drained out of the contract master god's face. He could suddenly feel an extremely tremendous amount of power that was crushing down from above his head, leaving him absolutely helpless in the face of it. Lin Fan opened his mouth as a gush of blood flowed out. Despite that, he was still roaring in a crazed laughter, "Contract Master God. If yours truly wants you dead in 3 seconds, he means 3 seconds. There's absolutely no way yours truly will grant you even a single second more. Split apart then." Bam! A fist was thrown out onto the body of the contract master god as that formidable power surged right in, shattering that god core within. How could this be? The face of the contract master god was aghast in disbelief. He could not believe that this would truly be the way things had turned out. Indeed, he did not manage to last more than 3 seconds. How could this even? To think that despite being surrounded, that indigenous being could still have him killed. Even though he was the weakest master god amongst all of them here, he shouldn't be that fragile. Crack. The body of the contract master god started breaking apart bit by bit, causing streams of light to shoot out of his body like thousands of banners that pierced through the entire heaven and earth. Arg hhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhh. A tragic howl filled the entire world as the god core of the contract master god cut sight of the scene before them. Ding! Congratulations on killing contract master god. Ding! Experience points plus. Ha 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 ha. Lin Fan reared his head and roared out in a crazed laughter. He had finally killed the contract master god, causing his experience points to surge up once more. And with that, he could sense his strength turning even more monstrous. Even though he was an immortal king, he knew that he was clearly mightier than who he was moments earlier. No, when the Void Master God and the Chasm Master God caught sight of the scene before them, their eyes were filled with rage. Clearly, they had already struck out at that indigenous being. However, the physical body state of the latter was simply way too strong, such that they could only cause him to cough out blood. If it were any ordinary immortal king, they would have long been sliced apart upon taking on those god powers. There was no way they could even remain standing like this. Impossible. The two master gods were not the only ones in disbelief, even the boundless future Buddha Lord was in a state of shock. He then glared at Lin Fan in rage. Just who in the world are you? How is it possible that your strength has gotten even stronger than moments before? The boundless future Buddha Lord was someone with a sharp perception. He had noticed that the powers of that lad had increased significantly from before. Unless, at that moment, the boundless future Buddha Lord was frozen. Could it be that this lad actually got stronger the more he fought? But how could that possibly be? How in the world could an existence as such even appear between the heaven and earth? Lin Fan's foot stepped out as his life force gushed out furiously, healing up every single wound on his body. Alright, you guys don't have to think anymore. Currently, if you guys wish to kill yours truly, that is already absolutely impossible. Even if you guys surround and fight me, so what? All you accomplish is to give me a little more trouble. Bald monk, it's true that if you wanted to kill me in the past, it would have been as easy as squishing a single ant to death. But now, it's all too late now. In the eyes of yours truly, all of those weak chickens of master gods are people I can kill with extreme ease. Even if it's you, there will definitely come a day where you will die in the hands of yours truly. Looking at that wildly arrogant expression on Lin Fan's face, the boundless future Buddha Lord suddenly found his entire Buddha heart freezing all of a sudden. At that moment, his mind suddenly flashed with a single statement that his most abhorred existence in the world had once said to him. The boundless future Buddha Lord shook his head furiously while muttering, "Impossible. I, boundless, refuse to believe in this sh*t." At that moment, the boundless future Buddha Lord roared out as an infinite golden body appeared around him. This was the body of a Buddha Lord, vast and dignified, it sat solemnly in the void. Every single motion of that body was filled with an endless amount of Buddhist power. This was especially the case when those eyes were jerked open, with two golden beams of light shining all the way out. Lin Fan swung out with his palm, disintegrating those two golden beams of light. He then reared his head over and shouted, "Boundless future Buddha Lord, do you really think that you can take down yours truly just because you unleashed that body of the Buddha Lord? You have got to be dreaming. However, I've got no time to play with you right now. Those two master gods are mine." Uproar. The Void Master God and the Chasm Master God felt their hearts freezing up when they caught sight of the expression on the face of this indigenous being. They were feeling an extremely crazy pressure right now. This was a pressure that wasn't existent earlier on. Indigenous being, you're being brazen. The two master gods hollered out together. They did not believe that this indigenous being would be able to kill them. Lin Fan merely chuckled out, "Later on, you guys will get to experience the most horrifying scene ever in this entire world, the interchange of yin and yang." Looking at that smile of the indigenous being, the hearts of the two master gods skipped a beat. They could feel that everything was starting to feel really treacherous. Amitabha, both master gods, please make way and allow your Buddha Lord to take him down. At that moment, the boundless future Buddha Lord spoke up, his deafening Buddha voice filling and rattling the entire world. Lin Fan tossed his head around. "Bald monk, I've been waiting for a long time now. Since the chance has come, you're not going to be able to escape." Soap. With that, a white object suddenly appeared between the heaven and earth. When the boundless future Buddha Lord, who was just about to suppress Lin Fan, caught sight of that item, he was so petrified that goosebumps appeared all over his body while he froze up entirely. There was no way he would dare to linger any longer as he bolted right into the void to hide. Thud, nothing special happened as that counterfeit floated gently in the void. Ha 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 ha, Lin Fan roared out in laughter, you have fallen for it once again, bald monk. Let me have a good talk with these two master gods first then. When the boundless future Buddha Lord caught sight of this, he was entirely incensed. Lad, you're courting death. He had not expected that he would be tricked by that lad once more. However, Lin Fan had already moved out toward those two master gods.